Oh, okay. So it looks like wearing the equipment makes them less likely to kick me out. They're watching some. Okay. Oh, right now I want to get this, which I actually do need a little bit of attention for.
Who the heck needs a countdown timer anymore? Like I said, scuff, that's all I am. One thing they're not going to be happy for, and then I'm just going to suddenly hear, FBI, open up! Alright. Yeah, that's real professional. So, what I've decided on tonight is, after a little while, Leon Cyphers is going to join me, Mongraze. We're going to check out the death battle that just released today. So I was thinking before that, I'm going to check out some of these deaths of death battle or whatever they are, mini little episodes, see what they're all about. And if we're still waiting for them, find something else until then. After that, I'm not sure if I'm going to do another Nexpo video or if I'm going to go ahead and start Stardew Valley. I'll try to make that decision when I get there. Which means I need to change my information real quick. Good enough. Okay, let's turn that off. All right, I got them synced up. Let's go.
You ever thought about taking over the world? I know a mad scientist who certainly has. Results still pending. And I've yet to see a better example of it almost coming true than Madara Uchiha's Eye of the Moon plan. Well, better is perhaps a tad strong. Try one of the most absurd, cartoonishly overcomplicated supervillain plans in all of the jumping shonen. It's given legions of internet underdwellers headaches over the years, including that sweet summer scientist I mentioned before.
Yeah,
so
it's freaking stupid.
Step by step and see if we can't pinpoint
I hate
exactly
the ending in Naruto.
In case you want to give it a try
Everything
yourself.
was fine
All
going up until the very end.
To be born the reincarnation of an alien demigod, and
but his plan was so arbitrary as fuck.
Got it? Great. Let's get started. I'm Jocelyn, and I do all the research nobody else wants to. Straight from the desk of Death Battle. Setting the stage, Madara and Hashirama, two leaders of two opposing clans. They're best buds, but also can't help but kick each other's teeth in. Hashirama wants their clans to all live in peace and happiness. Kumbaya stuff. Madara wants to dictator this shit up. We're gonna sing Kumbaya, and we are gonna like it. God damn it. So they fight at the Valley of Foreshadowing, and Hashirama wins. But like any good paranoid would-be autocrat, Madara had a plan. Madara always has a plan. Specifically, the Eye of the Moon plan. Essentially, he'd be able to cast the Infinite Tsukuyomi, basically a mind-control dojutsu projected on the moon itself. It'd capture everyone in a dream world and give them the happy future they always wanted. Except for him, maybe? Would he get trapped in it too, or just chill out with a bunch of drooling ninja zombies for the rest of eternity?
I think he was going to put
Not
himself
clear.
to sleep
Off to a
after
bad start.
everybody else.
Anywho, step 1. In case of death in your fight against your ninja boy frenemy, use your fancy red eye magic to bring yourself back to life. Izanagi is a Sharingan dojutsu that briefly warps reality, specifically to undo your own death. And remember to set a time-delayed version that will work long after everyone thought they were done with you. Good thing time-delayed jutsus are like a thing. Step 2. Make sure during that battle to eat some of your bro's flesh. Wow, allowing you to keep yourself alive for the next few decades and develop the almighty Rinnegan. Unfortunately, all your enemies are in power and will drop-kick your ass down to Hiffle if you so much as sneeze in their general direction. Rinnegan or no, you're not immortal, so you'll need some gullible anti-villain servants to carry on your will. Step 3. Implant your beautiful new Rinnegan into this Senju kid, Nagato. He'll become his own psycho supervillain eventually. They grow up so fast. Remember this for later. Step 4. Find this near-death Uchiha kid, Obito, and nurse him back to full health. He could make a great stooge. Oh, but wait. 4-A. Obito is like nice? I know, gross. So you're going to need to improvise. Trick Obito into watching his friend Kakashi kill his other friend Rin. Except Kakashi won't kill her. She'll jump in front of his attack and commit suicide. Whatever. Obito will go crazy with grief and will never think about investigating this incredibly suspicious series of events. Side note, it's admittedly not clear how you'll know all of this will play out in the exact perfect way to drive Obito to the dark side, despite not having direct control of everyone's actions. You're going to have to fill in those details yourself. I believe in you. Step 5. Train Obito to be your dark apprentice and plan that after you die, he'll get Nagato. Told you he'd be back. To use his/your Rinnegan to eventually bring you back to life to enact your giant tree plan. Except Obito won't do that. Kabuto will. Completely separate from Obito and Nagato. Okay, so step 5 is going to require a lot of luck and some elbow grease too. But if it worked once, it can work again. You're back alive. You can capture the tailed beast, and you can summon that big old tree. Congrats! Okay, jokes aside, that last twist might seem like an ass pull, but it's frankly the only believable part of this
his
entire
plan was so
mess.
stupid,
There's
he was still a
rule
good
in
villain.
world building. Weird shit
And then they
needs
fucked it
to
up.
happen. Coincidences, twists of fate, random happenstance. Truth is stranger than fiction after all. What if Caesar stayed home that March 15th? What if Lincoln hated the theater? What if Justin Bieber never posted on YouTube? What if I didn't waste my life trying to understand complicated nerd shit all day? Questions for later. But my point remains. The fact that you'll be saved by pure dumb luck is probably the best part of this whole deal. Is what I would say if everything wasn't being orchestrated by someone else entirely. Black Zetsu! He's the one that brought your body to Kabuto. He's the one pulling the strings with every major character in the series from the beginning. And he was doing it all for Kaguya, some bunny goddess alien lady that
Some
very
asshole at the very end
metaphorically
of the series.
explodes you from the inside out, essentially deleting you from the story. That's gonna be a problem. So here's the solution. Step 6. Kill Black Zetsu. Except if you do that, Kabuto never revives you and your plan never even gets off the ground. But whatever, this world runs on fate and destiny and all that fun stuff. Believe in the power of friendship and I'm sure you'll conquer the planet in no time. And that's how to take over the world in 6 easy steps. Be sure to save me a spot next to your throne of skulls. Or at least a credit. That'd be nice. Fun fact, all Death Battle members are 73.6% stronger
I hated
and
the
happier,
end of
so
that
don't
show
miss out on
so
your chance
bad.
to directly support
It was
the team
such
by
an
clicking that
asshole
join
that
button.
that
And
Kaguya
thanks for
show
watching.
up. Nothing
This
ever
episode
in the
sponsored by
entire
BetterHelp.
series said shit about her, and then all of a sudden at the end it's like, bitch, here's a new villain for all of like 2 chapters.
No introduction, but is getting one anyway. The guy's power set has straight up become synonymous with superpowers in general. He's got all the hits, all the classics, super strength, super speed, flight, yada yada yada. But he's also got a ton of other powers you've never heard of. He's an all-you-can-eat buffet, pre-pandemic. But just like any sketchy buffet, there's a table in the back filled with forgotten foods that always feels more like an afterthought than anything else. Like, why does this pizza place have sushi? And why do I have a sudden craving for lukewarm tuna and cream cream cheese. Either way, Soups has a back bar of forgotten powers too. Some real doozies, some real humdingers, some real... Is 3 too many? Sorry, I'm rusty, but happy to be back. I'm Jocelyn, and I do all the research nobody else wants to, straight from the desk of Death Battle! Let's kick things off with a Superman topic that gets plenty of foot traffic. His secret identity and seemingly simultaneous lack of secrecy. The guy puts glasses on and calls it a day, but he actually has put plenty of different forgotten powers to good use in this area. At one point, Clark's glasses were able to hypnotically project a different face on himself, making him unrecognizable. Personally, I always assumed
would make
that
more
everyone
sense
at
if
the
they
Daily
just went
Planet
with it.
knows Clark is Superman. They just play along because who wants to tell the strongest being on the planet that their hipster glasses don't actually do enough to conceal the 6'3" hunk of hero underneath it? Oh, be my guest, Jimmy. Tell
like
Clark
that.
you know his deepest, darkest secret, because nothing bad ever happens to you. But on top of all of this, he was once
Holy
able to
shit.
shapeshift into any form, making this entire thing
They just
totally
straight up
moot
killed
that
Jimmy?
He, used that power to keep his identity a secret. Real missed opportunity there. This next power is definitely one of the humdingers I mentioned before. The good old amnesia kiss. He gives Lois a quick peck, and bam! Bye-bye memories, bye-bye consent. I'm sure you all have a lot to say on the topic, #me too. But where I actually want to focus your attention is the fact that Super Kent has non-predatory mind control powers. He didn't have to kiss anyone and introduce this whole icky situation at all. A totally avoidable Moving on. This one is a personal favorite of mine from the Silver Age. After a lot of hand-wavy plotting, Superman loses
They did
his
everything
powers,
with him
but
because they
picks up a
literally
cute,
just
nifty new
could.
one. He can shoot little Supermen out of his hands. The Mini-Man has all of Soup's original powers and starts saving Metropolis. Adorable. Now, my mind immediately went to the fact that Superman can also clone himself, which means that Superman should be able to clone himself and create a little army of super cute Supermen. Ideally, he'd shoot them out of his hands, creating even smaller Soups each time, and then we'd get an amazing Russian nesting doll thing going, but I'll take what I can get.
Why?
Jocelyn will be right back with this episode sponsored
That is
by
literally
BetterHelp.
the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Seriously. Oh my god. And I watch anime.
BetterHelp Online Therapy is here for the
Hi, I
21st
can just
century.
shoot little me's
We'll
out that are
assess your
just as
needs
strong
and
as
match you
me.
with your own
Okay,
licensed
Cell.
therapist in less than 48 hours.
Jesus
In a world as
Christ.
and often lonely as ours, it's so important to have someone like a therapist to bounce your thoughts and feelings off of.
It's not a crisis line or self-help. It's worldwide.
Room as with visit BetterHelp to people who have
Thank you for the bar helps.
Powers among
BetterHelp.com/Desca.
Over the years, these powers, among many others, have come and gone to the Man of Steel in attempts to make him cooler, but then more relatable. And that got me thinking. Before he was Emo Jesus, he was a symbol. Superman was just a Superman, a hero that could and would do anything to save the day. So maybe by giving him limitless power that caters exclusively to the situation at hand, they aren't making him unrelatable and uninteresting as a character, but they're in fact just appealing to the idea of a hero that will
No.
never stop saving the day.
No.
Yeah, it's dumb. Here's the rest of his
Yes.
ridiculous list of party tricks.
very
He
dumb.
can time travel, artificially age objects, project his voice through someone's body and through radio signals, and repair the Great Wall of China just by looking at it. He's got super mathematics, super weaving, super dancing, and super eating. He knows who's calling him with super caller ID. He can create a solar flare, and he's got super plastic wrap to keep his enemies tasting fresh. I think Clark would rather us
I think the
forget
only one
about
I'll give him
these,
there is
but
the
what he's
math,
forgotten is
because
that
he's just
no
super
amount
fast.
of creepy kisses can make
And the
internet
solar flare thing
forget
because,
anything.
you know, he gets his power from the
Fun
sun.
fact, all Death
But
Battle members
literally
are
he just
73.6%
has these
stronger
random
and
ass
happier,
fucking
so don't
powers.
miss
No.
out on your chance to directly
That was
support the
literally
team by
just,
clicking that join
he's
button.
Superman. He
And
can do
thanks
whatever the
for
fuck he
watching.
wants.
James Bond. He's more than a man. He's a
Fucking
super
bad.
spy. A legend. A code name. That's right, I said it. But before we really dive into it, let me set the scene. It was a warm night at the movies in 2008. The credits wrapped at the end of this summer blockbuster, but one man lingered on screen to utter a life-changing line. I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. And the crowd of nerds went
Went
wild.
apeshit.
Suddenly, just like that, we were living in a post-MCU world. One where interconnected stories were all the rage, and everyone and their moms Reeves wanted to try to make a cinematic universe. Remember the Dark Universe? Yeah, that was doomed the moment they didn't get Tom Cruise fighting a real mummy. Should've called me. I know a guy. Regardless, there's a palpable desire for cameos and connections in all of our big franchises these days. But I'm here to tell you, the biggest cinematic universe has been under our noses this entire time. The Bondiverse. The James Extended Cinematic... but you get it. The Bond movies. Let's get into it. The name's Jocelyn.
The Bond movie.
Just Jocelyn. Then I do all the research nobody else wants to, straight from the desk of Death Battle! So, the codename theory. It's pretty well known amongst fans of the franchise, but in case you're new here, the theory proposes that the name, James Bond, is merely a codename given to each man that earns his license to kill and
I
takes
like
up
that
the
theory,
mantle.
actually.
So each actor in the movies is actually
It's
portraying
bullshit.
a different man in the same continuity. This would
Because
then
of the
easily
original book
connect
series.
all 25-ish movies and
It works in the
explain
movies,
things
but it
like
doesn't
Dame
work in the
Judi
book
Dench
series,
playing
from
M
everything
for
I've
both
read.
Pierce
The
Brosnan
books
and Daniel
make it
Craig's
obvious
movies.
it's the
That
same
lets
guy.
you get all of that juicy interconnectivity
While in the
I was
movies,
talking about.
it's
So,
spread
I'm
out so
here to
much that
tell you,
obviously
it's all
a new
true.
Bond is a new
I
Bond.
think. Let's find out. For starters, I know there are plenty of times where the movies specifically call out the idea of multiple Bonds. In On Her Majesty's Secret Service, George Lazenby says, "This never happened to the other fella." What's proofier than that? How about later in the movie when Blofeld doesn't recognize Bond even though they just met in the previous film? Of course he doesn't recognize this Bond, because it's literally a different guy and they hadn't met yet. Or what about when George opens up his desk drawer to find a bunch of specific stuff like the underwater breathing device from Thunderball left behind by the previous Bond? Yeah, case closed, right? But that
last one
same
doesn't-
movie brings up a really interesting
Could just be his
point,
own
the
stuff.
Tracy of it all. Lazenby's Bond marries her, but even after she dies, multiple Bonds refer to her as their wife. Roger Moore's Bond even visits her grave in For Your Eyes Only. So sure, this might seem like a hiccup big enough to deflate the whole theory. Maybe for some weak-willed casual, but I'm a professional! And guess what? People can marry women with the same name, and people can show respect by visiting the grave of their predecessor's dead wife. It happens. Moving on, because there's just way too much here to refute the whole theory. Like in Casino Royale. The real one, we see a new guy take
real
over
one.
the Bond identity from day one. Daniel Craig assumes the codename for the first time, and we see his origin. Not the origin of the codename
yeah.
that dates back to 1962, but the origin of Daniel's character becoming the cold-hardened spy that the role demands of you. Also, come on, it makes total sense that a super secret top spy would have an alias. Why would he go around the world for decades telling everyone that shakes a martini at him that his name is Bond? Super secret top spy, my Christian name is James Bond. If that was actually his real name, it would be chaos. I mean, yes, there is some evidence to suggest that it is his real name, like the Bond family crest, the Bond family home, and Craig visiting his parents' grave because apparently that's something all of these guys like to do. So yeah, maybe there's a Bond family. Maybe they all come from the same ancestral line somehow. Maybe Bond has a nephew called James Bond Jr.
Oh my
that
God,
borrowed the
that
codename
fucking
65
show.
times from September of 1991 to March of 1992. Wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. Bond's an orphan with no siblings. How does he have a nephew? And why would his parents name him James Bond Jr. after his uncle? I guess it's the codename, right? Someone who took up the mantle decided it would be a good idea to loan out the MI6 codename, License to Kill and All, to their teenage nephew? Yeah, that makes total sense. You know what? This officially isn't fun anymore. I'm forcing it, clearly. It was a fun theory because at a glance, it seems like all of these pieces fit together. Having to shoehorn this stuff into place
should
feels
explode,
too much
honestly.
like work for my taste. I guess that's what usually happens when a fan theory stops being a theory and becomes headcanon. It stops being fun. When something gets canonized, there's no wiggle room for interpretation. Plus, then we're limiting ourselves and what's possible because everything needs to fit into our little boxes and meet our own expectations. That's boring. I want to have fun and let my imagination run wild. Think of the crazy fan theory possibilities. If there are multiple bonds, it opens the door to a cinematic universe that spans 7 decades. So much lore and history to bolster such a beloved character. M's death has such a stronger impact if we think of her portrayal across those 7 movies as one singular character in continuity. We can start thinking of it like Doctor Who and celebrate the end of an actor's run by passing the torch to the next actor. Idris. And hell, this even opens the door to potential crossovers. James Bond, No Way Home, Governor. So, yeah, I take it all back. A definitive answer to the question means no fun crossovers. Yeah, no thanks. I'll play out the Idris and Craig buddy Bond cop movie in my head and call the codename thing a fun fan theory and nothing more. Unless... Fun fact, all Death Battle members are 73.6% stronger and happier. So don't miss out on
But no,
your
that's
chance
right.
to directly
Headcanons
support the
get
team
a
by
little
clicking
too
that join
rambunctious.
button.
You can have
Thanks
it,
for watching.
but if you try to make it like the fact, you literally try too damn hard. And it does. It just makes it not fun anymore. That's half the reason why Tumblr kept exploding.
Hey, have you heard of the MCU? It's
No.
kind of a big deal. In like a
What's that?
culture-defining, all-encompassing, soul-devouring kind of way. It's great. And after 10 years of world building and crossovering, we got Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, the dramatic conclusion to the most ambitious saga in film history. We're all familiar with the story, since the box office returns are proof pretty much everyone watching has seen it. But, and this may not come as a surprise, it plays out very differently
honestly,
in
I'm
the
behind a
source
couple
material.
movies.
And I'm here to... Oh god, my back. Ugh.
Spider-Man, the last one was the last
And
one.
I'm
so-
here to, do the thing.
The
It's
thing.
hard to remember what my
Do the
line
thing.
is because this
Jailing.
is so heavy. Ow! Oh. Ugh. Oh, whatever, man. I'm Jocelyn, and I do all the research nobody else wants to, straight from the desk of Death Battle. Ouch.
But before we get into that Marvel goodness, here's a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp.
Taking care of your mental health might not be at the
Turns me off again.
top of your to-do of your
Or
try better
down. Offers all to.
in that you can be
This month at BetterHelp.com/.
I found out that I can get a
Popped an
student
aspirin or
discount.
3 and we're good to go. So,
On
the
premium.
first and biggest difference
So I
is
jumped
the
on it.
giant purple Shrek himself, Thanos. And a lot of you might know this already. In the movies, he's a traumatized, psychotic space dictator who watched his
But in the
planet
comics-
collapse from overpopulation and is determined to prevent the same thing from happening to the universe.
But
How?
in the
By
comics-
claiming the Infinity Stones and deleting half the universe's population.
The
This has been the
comics.
source of a lot of debate, because in fairness, it is kind of kicking the can down the road. What will you do when the universe repopulates back to full in a few generations? What about the civilizations that will collapse because of the instantaneous loss in manpower? If
Yeah.
you can warp reality itself, can't you just make more food, more planets, more universe? I guess not. Whatever. Thanos from the comics is a completely different beast.
He's a
Unlike
monster.
his, and maybe this is generous, morally ambiguous filmic counterpart, this motherfucker is pure evil and loves it. His whole soul is devoted
He's the
to
Mad
being
Titan.
an enormous, violent, violet dick to everyone and everything that lives. He's not
Happy
committing
birthday.
genocide for some higher life-saving
Yeah, you did.
purpose. He's doing it to impress a girl he's got the hots for, and her name is Death. That's right, the physical embodiment of the concept of death in Marvel. And that's great. If I may offer up an oh-so-humble opinion, there's a tendency to make villain motivations sympathetic by simply making them misguided. But what's more sympathetic than turning yourself into an asshole in order to impress someone who was never really interested in you in the first place? But instead of it being the dreamy oboe player from band class, it's an abstract god. Now, it is very comic booky and weird, so it's an understandable change, but I am such a fan of the original. Anyways, Thanos gets the Infinity
Yeah.
Gauntlet after his Thanos quest, and wastes no time in snapping away half the universe as a gift to his beloved. Yeah, there's no movie-long build-up to him fighting through the Avengers.
It
to
is
get the
literally
stones.
the start of
They're
the comic.
Gems. Marvel's heroes are just sitting around, minding their business. Then, oops, half of everyone you know is gone. Just zooped from existence. Sorry you didn't get to do anything, Hawkeye. At least that's the same as the first movie. But not only is the rest of that completely different, it also shows us how much more powerful the Infinity Gems are than the Infinity Stones. You can't even touch the Power Stone without blowing up. No such issue with the gems, and you can use them as much as you want. Thanos isn't a one-pump chump here, he can go all night. And instead of setting up some epic time travel plot, all of Earth's heroes show up at Thanos' doorstep to kick his ass. Completely, hilariously, suicidally misguided.
Yep.
And Thanos proves it. And the lineup is way different. Sure, you got Cap, Spidey, and Hulk, but Star-Lord hadn't even been created yet. Thor was merged with this guy, Eric Masterson, and Iron Man wasn't the big protagonist. That'd be Adam Warlock. And after briefly landing
Which hasn't
in the hands
even
of
entered the
Nebula,
freaking show
who was
yet,
driven
or the
crazy
series.
by Thanos and has giant 80s hair, the gauntlet was eventually claimed by Adam, and he promised to use it more responsibly and less genocide-y than Thanos. The farm is there though, and that's great. But a weapon like that won't stay idle for long, and this storyline continues in the next big crossover arc, Infinity War. Oh yeah, Infinity War the movie is more an adaptation of the storyline Infinity Gauntlet. Infinity War in the comics is totally different. There's this guy Magus, it's a lot. And then there's Infinity Crusade, and Infinity Countdown. Just don't even get me started.
Comic books are
Fun
weird.
fact, all Death Battle members are 73.6%
They do
stronger
exactly
and
what they
happier.
want when
so
they
don't
want,
miss out
how
on
they
your
want.
chance to directly
And
support the team
piss
by
on
clicking
whatever
that
happened
join
before,
button.
because they'll just
And
reset the
thanks for
entire damn
watching.
universe.
What if Luke failed to blow up the Death Star? What if Leia turned to the dark side? What if
Yes.
Yoda was a psycho mass murderer? Yeah, sometimes what
I
if
like it.
stories are really great examples of what not to do with beloved characters. Today's story obviously takes place in the asteroid field that is Star Wars. And these days it sure does feel like the probability of successfully navigating through this fandom is approximately 3,720 to 1. So we'll let you decide on your own if Star Wars Infinity's portrayal of Jedi Master Yoda feels a little off. I'm Jocelyn, and I do all the research nobody else wants to, straight from the desk of Death Battle! Yeah, so in this version of A New Hope, the proton torpedoes just don't work. For reasons. The rebellion has lost, and our
I
heroes
mean,
are suddenly
yeah.
in hot water. There isn't time. There never
That
is.
was
and they need
beyond
to
a
get out of
MacGuffin
there.
just
We
for
have
a reason
important
for it to
what-ifing to do
work.
after all.
Should never have
Unfortunately, Leia gets captured because some things never change. And Luke ends up on Dagobah to begin his big boy Jedi training. There he meets Yoda, and a lot earlier than he did in Empire Strikes Back. But he's still the sage old Jedi we remember him being. Weird conman shtick and all. He's filled to the brim with life lessons, trains Luke in the Force, and touts all of that peace and understanding stuff. He doesn't even train Luke to use his lightsaber. In fact, at this point, Yoda has thrown his own lightsaber away. He's the model Jedi, exactly who we remember him to be, a hero with zero psychopathic tendencies. Right? Anyways, everything else about Luke's training is the same, except for this time when he decapitates Lord Father in that Force cave, it turns out to be Leia's face under the mask. Dun dun dun! I feel like we
Okay.
need something stronger than foreshadowing here. How about on the nosing? Cause you guessed it, Leia wasn't just a captive, she was Darth Vader's Sith apprentice, whether she liked it or not. She even got the old
I like that. That's cool.
We can rule the galaxy together as father and daughter. I mean as old guy and young lady.
speech. So the group decides enough is enough, and they need to save Leia. But this time, Yoda is coming along. I guess in this timeline, he wasn't bored to literal death by Luke's inability to
they
lift
even
an
gave
X-wing. Okay, let's pause
excuses
for a second.
in the,
Guys, I have a sponsor. Take it away, sponsor.
This episode is sponsored
the sequels
by
that
Life is feel like we're taking
Leia had learned how to use the Force. She was training with Luke, but just never, ever actually got to see her do anything outside
So
of
they head
that.
off to
I pulled
Coruscant,
myself
but
into
not
the
before
ship
Yoda
thing.
drops this gem.
Long has
Oh.
it been since I have sat in the temple of the Jedi. Many fond
It would've been
memories
cool.
have I of my days on Coruscant.
What? Didn't you watch like everyone you know die at the hands of a super obvious coup? This clone army came out of nowhere. Should we trust them with our lives? Yup, nothing suspicious about that. I mean, I guess
Well, it's
Yoda
the
was
Republic,
pretty
of
different in
course.
his prequel days. The guy was kinda gung-ho on the Clone Wars, amongst some shady circumstances. But then he fails the Jedi, fails the Republic, and learns from his mistakes. That's how he becomes the peaceful and wise Yoda we meet in Empire. Right? I got a bad feeling about this. Well, he ends up Jedi mind tricking his way into taking control of the Death Star and destroying the Imperial fleet in orbit over Coruscant. Meanwhile, Luke and Han end up in the Emperor's palace, where an episode of Jerry Springer breaks out during Leia and Luke's duel. Luke drops the brother bomb, the two reconcile, but the Emperor is obviously pissed and
So bad.
Anakin returns and steps in long enough for his children to escape, but unfortunately for him, there wasn't a huge reactor shaft to throw the guy down, so Annie dies, failing to stop the Emperor once and for all. But in this timeline, that wasn't his destiny. All of a sudden, Yoda appears on screen and announces that he's coming for the Emperor. Yoda, clearly still pissed about their last tumble in Coruscant, is just calling to taunt the guy. It's not like Yoda FaceTimed him just in time to stop him from killing Anakin. No, he just wants to freak the guy out before he flies the Death Star directly into the planet. Yoda straight up genocides an entire city planet. Not only that, but he decides to do it without mentioning any part of that batshit crazy plan to the rest of the group.
He just
Cool,
fucks
Yoda.
Coruscant?
Yeah, keep that part of the plan where you destroy the planet your buddies are on to yourself. No heads up, no force text to Luke warning them they're gonna die if they don't get out of there. Side note, would Yoda's text be green bubble or blue bubble? Green bubble while he's still kicking and blue bubble after he croaks? Agreed. Moving on. So yeah, this fun little what-if story really leans into a Yoda that did not process his grief very well.
No.
War ends, some time passes, and Yoda is remembered as a hero for ending the Empire and the lives of so many people.
Of an entire fucking planet.
To recap, Yoda, the Jedi, like master of all sacred life and energy that binds and connects us all, ditches his non-violent playbook and pretty much gives into the dark side to enact petty revenge on the Emperor, killing trillions in the process. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
But it was for the greater good,
Fun fact,
right?
all Death
Isn't
Battle
that the
members
whole
are
fucking creed or whatever?
73.6% stronger and happier. So don't miss out on your chance to directly support the team by clicking that
Do
join
not
button.
put
And
feelings.
thanks for watching.
But fuck you. With your own space station.
By now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Archie Comics' Sonic the Hedgehog series, longest-running comic based on a video game franchise, shockingly deep, heady lore, and despite the banal, down-to-earth vibes suggested by the name Archie, completely batshit insane! Like the pre-crisis DC Comics version of Sonic the Hedgehog, or hey, like the Riverdale version.
Punish me, Daddy.
I guess that whole Archie thing makes sense after all. What better place to start than with the ancient supervillain Mammoth Mogul and the day he achieved godhood? And what better way to celebrate than by clutching an entire universe in your palm and squeezing it like a stress toy? Trillions dead instantly. A comic for children, remember? This was without
Okay,
a doubt
she
the
was
most
real low at
consequential
first.
story ever told by Archie Comics. A plotline built up for a decade. It was up to one awkwardly drawn anthropomorphic animal man
Okay,
to
that should
save
work.
the day. He was the prophesied chosen one of legend, and his name was, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog's sidekick, Tails the Fox. What did you think I was gonna say? I'm Jocelyn, and I do all the research nobody else wants to, straight from the desk of Death Battle! First, we need to talk about the multiverse. It exists, and every universe or zone has its own Sonic the Hedgehog, including
Call
the
them
No Zone,
zones.
which is situated 90 degrees to everything else. That implies something perhaps quite frightening about gravity and inertia between universes. Like, if you're a no zoner that went to a different zone and you stepped outside, would you just go shooting off into space? Or would the force of your home gravity pull at you the same as this new universe's gravity and rip your body to shreds? Oh, wait, no. He's just standing on the comic panel itself. That's way more confusing. Introducing my original character, Do Not Steal, Sonic. He's a zone cob. A healthy multiverse is like a healthy digestive tract. It needs proper structure in order for everything to go through smoothly. And zone cops keep a large hedgehog mono eye out for trouble. And what could be more troublesome
What?
than an egomaniacal mammoth traipsing around the multiverse, destroying every universe he could literally get his hands on? After absorbing the chaos
Sonic is
energy of
weird.
the green apple-flavored Chaos Knuckles, Mogul was unstoppable. So Sonic called up our furry orange pal to save the day. That's right, the anthropomorphic fox boy with the magical rotating asshole, otherwise how else would he get those tails to spin, was the key. Why him and not his blue best friend whose 9 to 5 is kicking supervillain ass? It's a long story. Long as in this whole plotline started, I kid you not, 10 years earlier and was built up as the biggest story in Sonic Comics history. Tails wasn't just the Blue Blur's busboy. He'd gotten his own miniseries. He fought Mogul in the past, and the Chaos Gods known as the Ancient Walkers declared Tails to be the Chosen One. The Chosen One fated to defeat Mogul once and for all. And then we didn't hear about it for like 50 issues until, surprise, the Tails we've been following for like 2 years was a clone created by Mogul because Tails is the Chosen One. And no one knew the difference the whole time. And then the clone Tails just dies and is never mentioned again. Back to the plot. Sonic didn't know any of this though, so he invited every Tails from across the multiverse to fight. We've got Benjamin Franklin Tails, Brooklyn Hipster Tails, Care Bear Tails, and of course my favorite, either Neo from the Matrix or Public Flasher Tails.
I go with the latter.
Just throw them all at God and hopefully one of them will stick. Or, you know, get completely obliterated. Sonic, I doubt Rootin' Tootin' Cowboy Tails is the chosen one of legend. But whatever, Mogul shows up and doesn't just immediately destroy the universe like all the others. He challenges the army of Tails to a fight. Wasn't his hand like the size of a galaxy earlier? Why is this a fight? Doesn't matter. The chosen one Doomsday Clock finally hits midnight and Tails believes in the heart of the cards. Without really explaining anything about the actual physical mechanics of what's going on, Tails absorbs every other Tails in the multiverse into himself and becomes swole. Why? How? Ugh.
That just
All
awakens
matters
something
is
in
this
somebody.
new and improved Titan Tails instantly defeats Mogul and absorbs his chaos powers with his rotating asshole. It really was magical after all. Now the, and I quote, ultimate power in the multiverse, Creatine Tails departed to what could have only been a higher plane of existence, a changed being, forever divorced from the material world, a prophecy disguising a tragedy. Oh wait, no. He just shows up normal again on the next page. The most important battle in the history of everything, a decade of buildup, a prophecy, a clone saga, all of that over in 5 pages. It wasn't even the main story, it was a back issue. Come back next month, kids, for more weirdly fetishistic art that'll awaken something deep within you for the rest of your life.
God damn it.
Hypothetically, of course. Fun fact, all Death Battle members are 73.6% stronger and happier. So don't miss out on
Okay. I'm gonna stop for a second. Try to find maybe something to fill the gap, and I'm gonna see if Leon's ready or not. I haven't heard anything yet, but I'm gonna take a quick look. So I will be right on back. Alright, I think he's still busy. That means I've never seen these animated SCP things. What's these all about?
On March 15th, 2011, Martin Sims was wandering down the streets of Carson, California. His clothes were ragged, he was filthy, and gibbering like a madman with a full beard and long, unkempt hair. His body was covered in scars, but he showed no signs of malnutrition. What made Martin's sudden appearance so remarkable? He'd been missing for 3 years. When he was interviewed by police, they asked him where he'd been all this time. They couldn't believe his answer. He'd been trapped in an IKEA since 2008, but this was no ordinary IKEA. This was a dangerous anomaly that would come to be known as SCP-3008. Martin's strange answers in his interview were laughed off by his interviewing officers, who assumed he was either crazy or under the influence of something, but they caught the attention of an SCP Foundation field agent embedded in the precinct. The report was passed up the chain to a local site director, who approved a detachment of Foundation field operatives to look into Martin's case. While he was reluctant to lead the Foundation agents back to the offending IKEA, the Foundation can be extremely persuasive. His screams of, "Please, I'm begging you, don't take me back, don't make me go back," were noted but ultimately disregarded. When the SCP Foundation had triangulated the position of SCP-3008, which was indeed an active IKEA, the entire retail zone was closed and barricaded under the pretense of a severe black mold infestation. Armed Foundation personnel also arrived on the site shortly after, based on Martin's vague statements that there were creatures of some kind inside. Due to his deteriorating mental health, Martin was unable to provide a great deal of lucid information on the specific traits of SCP-3008. But one phrase he kept repeating was, "bigger on the inside." Once researchers were satisfied that Martin had delivered all the pertinent information he was able to, he was administered Foundation amnestics to erase his memory of the last 3 years and return to his family. A cover story was formulated. Martin had been kidnapped and abused for 3 years by a mentally unbalanced stalker in downtown Carson. He'd been able to escape as said stalker took his own life out of guilt, a suicide that the Foundation expertly fabricated to make their cover story airtight. With the loose end of Martin Sims taken care of, the true observation of SCP-3008 could begin. A base set around the perimeter of the mysterious IKEA,
something like that,
with a
just to
24-hour
not
watch
have
on
any
the
memory
building,
at all,
covering
may
all
actually be
potential
better.
entrances and exits. No exploratory missions had yet been approved by the Foundation Ethics Committee, so they first wanted to perform a week of external observation to see if any of the store's anomalous properties extended beyond the confines of the building. After a week of nothing, it appeared they did not. A local site director approved of the use of 20 disposable Class D personnel to explore the interior of SCP-3008. The D-Class operatives would be split into 4 squads of 5 men, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta Squad. Each would be assigned a different quadrant of the store and would deliver information back to the control team on site via a live audio and video link. 3 of the 4 teams upon entering the store reported nothing out of the ordinary. Neither the audio or video they were sending back indicated anything different from a standard IKEA store, from the flat-pack wardrobes to the Swedish meatballs. Team Delta, however, suddenly began experiencing a scrambled audio and video connection.
I've actually never been to an
Shortly after
IKEA.
communication with
I
Team
kind of want
Delta
to go
dropped
just
off
for the
entirely,
meatballs and see what
they
it's like.
disappeared somewhere inside the store and haven't been seen since, with one notable exception. After the disappearance and the extraction of teams, Foundation researchers classified SCP-3008 as Euclid because its anomalous properties were at least confined to the interior of the store, and even then seemingly not the entire interior. The anomalous area within SCP-3008 became known as SCP-3008-1, and containment appeared to be 100% secure. There was no telling how many people had already gone missing in the store over the years, but the disappearances must be stopped. The Foundation maintained constant surveillance around the perimeter of SCP-3008, but it appeared they could prevent any further incidents by simply preventing other civilians from accessing the IKEA store. Martin's ravings about monsters were assumed to just be the product of delirium, until a surviving member of
It makes you
Delta
wonder
suddenly
why they
reappeared.
just wouldn't tear
The
the
date
store
was
down.
November 3rd, 2011.
But then they
It was a
usually give
cold
the
night,
excuse
a
of,
few hours
well,
after
we
what
don't
would
know
have been
what will
closing
happen
time
if
if
we
the
do
store
something
were
like
still
that.
active, and 7 months after
We
the
rather
extraction
leave it to the
teams
way
had
it is,
disappeared
and
somewhere
it
in the
works,
confines of
than do something that's
SCP-3008.
going to just
There had been no
basically
anomalous
piss it off.
activity outside the store since the
Because if they
perimeter was
tear it
first
down,
secured,
it
and the
could just
Foundation
make that
researchers hadn't
area
expected
spread
that
out
to change
instead.
until the last surviving member of Delta Team came barging out of the store's entrance. Startled field operatives were amazed to see him again, but they were even more amazed to see what was following him out of the store, repeating the same phrase: "The store is now closed, please exit the building." Despite the fact that the entity chasing the Delta Team survivor was wearing the yellow shirt and blue pants of an IKEA store employee, the being definitely was not human. It was around 7 feet tall with no visible face. The entity had grossly extended limbs, with each arm being around 5 or 6 feet long and ending in a huge oversized hand. The whole process was so sudden that the field agents present at the perimeter weren't able to save the Delta Team survivor, as the entity reached forward with his freakishly long arms, grabbed him, and twisted his head off like a child with a doll. The field operatives present drew their weapons and peppered the entity with bullets. It would later be classified as SCP-3008-2. The being appeared to collapse and die from the physical trauma, at which point it and the body of the former Delta Team survivor were taken for an autopsy by Foundation researchers. There were no biological abnormalities of the body of the Delta Team survivor, so it did not appear that the anomalous properties of SCP-3008-1 had any effect on the physiology of its occupants. He was not malnourished despite being missing for months, and the contents of his stomach looked to be half-digested food consistent with the menu of a typical IKEA store restaurant. SCP-3008-2, on the other hand, raised a number of perplexing biological questions. The autopsy revealed that the creature's clothes were actually part of its body, like an additional layer of skin. The creature lacked blood or any kind of vascular system. Even stranger, the entity didn't appear to have bones or internal organs, not even a brain or nervous system. It was a being made entirely of skin all the way to its core. How it was able to move, or even live for that matter, remains a mystery. Though when you work for the SCP Foundation, you learn to accept that some things will always remain unexplained. One thing was certain though, Martin Sims was right about his monsters. After the incident with Delta Team, the Foundation deemed that sending manned explorations into the heart of SCP-3008 was too much of a liability, and planned a series of drone-based reconnaissance missions into the anomaly. The first of these drones experienced connection issues and failed when attempting to venture into the IKEA's anomalous zone. However, after a lengthy period of trial and error, the Foundation was able to establish a more secure connection with its drones, even when deep into the SCP-3008-1 anomalous zone. It was only then that some of the most extraordinary discoveries were made. SCP-3008-1 seemed to break the laws of spatial reality, as the area of the IKEA's interior was at least an order of magnitude larger than its exterior. Just as Martin Sims had said, it was bigger on the inside, but
it's a TARDIS,
just how much
basically.
bigger? The Foundation has yet to find evidence of any physical terminators within the store that might indicate SCP-3008-1 has an endpoint, while an area of at least 10 kilometers squared has been uncovered in SCP-3008-1. It could, in theory, be infinite. Laser rangefinder tests, which are normally very reliable, have only given inconclusive results. Interestingly, the anomalous area doesn't have any clear visual differences from the rest of the IKEA store, except that it extends
the entrance
forever.
appears
An
like
individual
once
trapped
every
within the
day or
confines of
something, every couple days.
SCP-3008-1
And it's always in a
realize
random
they've
location.
entered an anomalous zone until they tried to locate an exit and leave, at which point they'd find they were already hopelessly lost. The geography of SCP-3008-1 does at least appear to be consistent, so people trapped within are theoretically able to retrace their steps and escape if they haven't already ventured too deep. According to data collected during the drone reconnaissance missions, SCP-3008-2, of which there appear to be a vast population, would wander the stores aimlessly during the day. They are unresponsive to the drone's presence and did not appear to be aggressive. While the physical descriptions of these creatures could vary slightly, they all follow the same overall trend. Clothes consistent with an IKEA uniform, no face, either seemingly too tall or too short, and limbs that are grossly out of proportion with their bodies. As the Foundation began sending drones deeper into SCP-3008-1, they found another incredible discovery. There was an unknown population of humans trapped inside IKEA's anomalous zone, and these people had used the IKEA furniture around them to create entire settlements and towns within the store. There were several of these towns, all of which seemed to cohabitate peacefully. Even Foundation personnel found this development in their research to be truly extraordinary. Since SCP-3008 was first identified, there have been only 14 civilian escapes. Some had been trapped inside for months, others had been in there for years, some far longer than Martin's 3-year stint. While every one of these escapees has eventually been released back to their home, after a liberal application of amnestics and a proper cover story has been devised, the Foundation interviewed each of them extensively first. According to each of these escapees, the people trapped inside the IKEA have built an entirely new society across the various settlements. Contrary to the Lord of the Flies expectations of a group of people isolated and afraid, there's immense cooperation between the trapped civilians. The food in the several IKEA restaurants in SCP-3008-1 mysteriously replenishes while nobody's there, so there's no threat of starving. And the automatic turning on and off of the lights forms as a rudimentary kind of day and night cycle. Nighttime, however, is when things get dangerous, as the SCP-3008-2 entities, which are known to the people inside as the staff, become extremely hostile after dark. Aggressive hordes of the staff swarm the settlements at night, repeating, "This door is now closed, please exit the building." The civilians inside are usually able to repel these attacks with minimal casualties, but the constant war of attrition slowly wears down those inside. The bodies of the creatures also need to be removed from the area after each attack, as the presence of corpses or even parts of corpses has been known to heighten the ferocity of the next night's attack. During the day,
So
the
it
staff
pisses
return
them
to a
off if they
docile
see.
and unresponsive state, though they'll still defend themselves violently if anyone dares to attack. Over the course of the interviews with the 14 escapees, Foundation researchers were able to answer another of their key questions. How had so many people gone missing in the store for so long without being noticed? But the answer they received only raised many more unsettling queries. According to the escapees, there were people inside the settlements that, despite being otherwise of entirely sound mind and standard intelligence, seemed to lack very common knowledge that even a child should know. For example, some of them weren't aware of the International Space Station orbiting the Earth, or stranger still, the existence of the Statue of Liberty. This led the researchers to a frightening conclusion. SCP-3008-1 may not only be a nexus point of multiple IKEA stores in our dimension, it could be connected to IKEAs in every dimension where IKEAs exist. While it only abducts a handful of people from each store over an extended period of time, it suddenly becomes clear how this SCP was able to trap so many people without detection over such a long period of time, which in turn led to an even more terrifying revelation. The SCP Foundation may not have SCP-3008-1 as contained as they thought. It might even be tucked away in an IKEA store somewhere near you, just waiting for you to visit. After all, there's always room for one more.
Oh, yeah, it's scary. I love this stuff. I've used to listen to a podcast when I used to work in a factory that would do dramatic retellings of the stories from the website. And this was a good one. They did one where a guy got caught in there and he talked about the settlement and stuff and the attacks. It was real good, actually.
We've all thought about disasters.
If this is
Imagine
the one I
massive
think it is,
floods,
it's pretty
fires,
good.
or a meteor suddenly crashing into Earth.
It probably won't
What
go into the
happens when
story, though. I think.
destruction
It'll probably just tell you
comes
what
quietly
happens.
and suddenly, with the dawning of a new day. Over the next 24 hours, the world as we know it will crumble, and something strange and terrible will rise to take its place.
It's not even
What will
24
that look
hours.
like? Who will try to rise to the occasion and help, and who will cower in the dark?
Me.
What happens to the people around the world in the first 24 hours after day breaks? Let's find out. Hour 1. It's 6 a.m. on a farm in Kansas, and the land is just beginning to wake up. The farmer and his wife and children are still sleeping,
Water
waiting
bottle.
for the cry of their rooster to tell them that it's time to start the day. The cows are grazing in the open field, letting out the occasional half-hearted moo, but they're still a bit too sleepy to give it their all. The pigs snort restlessly in the barn, feeling breakfast time approaching. The rooster, proud and stately, hops onto the roof of the chicken coop, surveying his domain. He tilts his head back and lets out a mighty crow. Cock-a-doodle. The sound catches in his throat as something strange begins to happen. His beak softens like wax dripping from a lit candle. It drops to the ground with a soft plop as his mighty wake-up call fades to a gurgle. There is something wrong this morning. Something truly, deeply wrong. If the rooster were capable of complex thought, he would be terrified. Instead, he is just melting, along with the hens, the cows, and the pigs, all dripping onto the grass as the faint light of morning changes them. Inside the farmhouse, the family begins to scream. Hour 2. An hour later in New York City, the city that never sleeps gets a rude awakening. No one can be sure when exactly the chaos broke out, but all of a sudden, people in their little apartments wake up to the sound of masses of other people calling out for help, of the thunderous footsteps of crowds tearing through the streets, and then of a strange gurgling sound that replaces the bedlam. A young woman throws open her blackout curtains to get a better
And
look
she
and
got
finds
fucked
herself melting along with them. Across town, a landlord knocks on his tenant's door, demanding some overdue rent, but there is no answer. Only the slop of something oozing across the floor inside. Security footage of Times Square catches an eerie sight. Masses of molten flesh spreading across the streets. The masses of tourists that were gathered there only hours before melted together into something else, bathed in the neon glow of the billboards and lights of the city. Hour 3. On the other side of the world, in Canberra, Australia, a group of college students is camping in the wilderness. While the United States is waking up to a horror show, they are sleeping soundly in their tents beneath the light of the moon. Well, except for one of them, who had decided to take his sleeping bag outside and sleep under the stars. That would have been a lovely idea, except for the fact that all sunlight, including that which reflected off the moon, has become quite destructive to the human body. I forgot that one,
yeah.
To all living things, in fact.
I mean,
His
yeah, the
mountain
sun
form
gets
sloshes around inside the sleeping
gets
bag,
reflected from
trying
the
to
sun,
regain some semblance of its original shape. Inside their tent, his friends
I
are
completely
still
forgot that
themselves,
moonlight was
shielded remarkably
did
well
it just
from the
as
light
well.
by the thick canvas. That is until one of them gets up to go to the bathroom and unzips the front of the tent. His mouth is already useless by the time he thinks to scream, and the moonlight floods inside and covers the group in a silvery glow. It doesn't take long for them to meet the same fate as their friend outside, melting together into one massive entity. They had hoped this camping trip would bring them closer together, and, well,
it did.
It did. Hour 4. Meanwhile, a speleologist is deep in the bowels of a cave in Tianshan that she has been studying, completely unaware of the terrors of the surface. She's taking samples, dictating notes to her research assistant, and keeping an eye out for bats, when suddenly, she receives a communication from one of the members of her research team up above. The technology they use only allows for short text messages that can be transmitted through the layers of soil and rock all around, but this warning needs only a few words. Don't come up. Not safe. The words send a chill up her spine. What could possibly be happening that's more dangerous than being down here? She writes back, asking for clarification, but receives none. Through the dark tunnels illuminated only by a few headlamps, she thinks she can hear the echo of a scream. Hour 5. Those that are still safe and have managed to hold on to their identities and forms have noticed yet another threat in addition to whatever the light is doing. All around the world, planes are dropping from the sky, their pilots and crews transformed into something incapable of flying an aircraft. Airplanes that were en route to their various destinations, thousands of them going in every direction imaginable, are now plummeting towards the ground, crashing into the ocean, or in some especially unlucky cases, landing on buildings that still have survivors inside. It's a truly brutal bit of irony to escape the sun's terrible rays and find some small sanctuary, only to have an airplane fall out of the sky and destroy it all. Hour 6. Over at the SCP Foundation, everyone is on high alert, trying to categorize what is happening and find a way to stop it. But how do you contain an anomaly when that anomaly is the sun itself? In the meantime, the O5 Council retreats to a specialized underground bunker constructed especially for this kind of dire scenario, outfitted with beds.
I'm under the theory that they are
enough
completely
supplies to keep them alive for several
they're
years,
not good people.
as long as no one
And I think a
harms
couple of
the
them are
snaps.
anomalies
As the rest of the
from all the
Foundation
theories
staff
I've
scramble
heard.
to find a solution before the rest of the Earth's population is reduced to goo, the anomalies contained throughout the various sites begin to take notice. SCP-999 oozes frantically around its site, hugging and nuzzling anyone it can get close to. It doesn't fully understand what is going on, but it can tell that everyone is quite upset and frightened by something, and it wants to help them feel better. Other anomalies have a less charitable approach. SCP-173 takes advantage of the chaos to escape containment, snapping a few necks on its way out just for fun. After all,
they changed
everyone's
that
eyes
one.
are otherwise occupied,
'Cause it got
because
copyrighted.
it is not made from any organic material. It is immune to the effects of the sun, and makes its way outside to explore the pandemonium. Research staff pass by SCP-682's containment chamber can hear the giant beast chuckling to itself, a sickening, choking sound as it laughs at the fall of humanity. Finally, it sighs. One scientist peeking through the observation window swears that the hard-to-destroy reptile is smiling before one of his colleagues ushers him down the hall, away from the monster's celebration. SCP-507 appears in the hall with a pop, back from another one of his involuntary interdimensional voyages. "Whoa, where's the fire?" he asks, taking in the hysteria around him. Did something get out? A bit of unease creeps into his voice. No, shouts a passing guard. It's what's trying to get in. God, I have the worst timing. 507 groans. Hour 7. Back in the realm of civilians, newscasters hop on to broadcast from studios devoid of natural light, unsure if there are any survivors left to hear their messages. One television personality forces his usual bright smile, staring down the barrel of the camera with barely concealed tears in his eyes. He can't let his smile crack, can't let himself break down. If he lets himself cry, really cry, he's scared he won't be able to stop. Please, remain calm, he reads off the teleprompter as a production assistant sobs into the shoulder of the camera operator. Experts are working to determine what is going on.
Peter, get the fuck off me.
In the meantime, please follow these instructions to ensure your safety and that of your loved ones. Do not go outside unless you are covered in proper equipment to shield yourself from the sun or moon. Block all sources of natural light in your residence. Do not attempt to interact with those who have been affected by this disaster. Do not touch them. Do not let them into your home. Do not speak to them. Again, please remain calm. Help is on the way. He doesn't know if the words are true.
Hey, are you there?
He only knows that it's his responsibility to give the people hope. Something familiar.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey.
Yeah, I was just watching something about some of the SCPs.
Oh, I love SCP lore. It's cool stuff.
Let me add this real quick so I can make sure I don't lose it. There we go.
Sorry that quest took so long.
This episode is sponsored.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah, that's probably the longest quest I've actually done. Oh. I didn't expect that.
I mean, it seems like everything in that thing takes forever.
Some of the quests. So if you don't know going in, like you go in blind, some of these quests can take forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saving a lot of time because I'm just looking up like what items they're going to require. Which is funny because some of the quests will make fun of you, be like, I have exactly the 20 items you need. And they'll be like, huh, that you just happen to be carrying that.
So you're kind of like old school thoughtbotting it a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, the game's been around forever, so yeah, you got guides aplenty to go off of.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let me... What's the best way to do this?
I mean, worst case, I got it popped up on one of my browsers, but if you wanted to try something.
Nah. We're good. Okay. Did you just want to watch through this at like the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you got premium or are you going to get ads?
Of YouTube?
Yeah.
I have uBlock.
Okay. So good enough. We're both going to be on the same page. All right. Just tell me when.
Okay. We'll do 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
By Babbel and Mint Mobile. James Bond.
I'm calling it right now. It's John Wick.
007.
John Wick, the legendary hitman.
I'll be
I lean
upset.
towards it too. I don't know John Wick though. I know Bond a little.
Bond's going to have a lot more gadgets, but John Wick is just more trained to kill people. Because he was an assassin.
Yeah.
And it's our job to analyze their weapons.
Yeah, there's a difference between people that can just pick you off out of nowhere and people in an actual brawl, right? They're two different skills.
Right.
From the shores of Crab Key to the crab stables of
I feel like Bond has a
Royale,
lot
from
more
Russia with
material,
love to
which is
Blue
usually
Ray
really good
into
for death
outer
battles.
space. No man has saved the world more times than Bond.
James
Yeah,
Bond.
they're using old
He's
Bond
the
too.
OG action hero, the slickest
Oh, they'll go
gun
through
there
the
ever
entire
was,
thing
the
and use
coldest
everything
warrior
he's
of
got.
the swinging 60s.
After a climbing accident in the French Alps took his parents, the young James studied abroad and graduated to the Ministry
Oh
of
shit,
Defense
they had a
just
comic
in
book
time
too.
for
I
World War
forgot.
II.
He rose through the ranks,
Oh,
quickly becoming a commander
getting
of the
comic books
Royal
into
Navy. And when you
Bond's
find the
looking
thing
better
you're good
already.
at, in his case, wanting murder, never do it for free.
So after the war, James
I will
decided
only
on
say
her
it's going to be
madness,
because he's got more to
became a
work with.
special agent of
But I
MI6,
really do
and
think
they were
Wick
so
would just,
impressed,
he would just
was
walk up and shoot him before he could do
sensational
anything.
assassinations. With this
There's no
baptism of
fancy
fire,
talking.
Bond was granted the legendary
Yeah,
00
I don't think James
status and a
Bond
license to
movies
kill
have a
with
lot of like
impunity.
big
As the
gunfights
premier
either,
defender
right?
of the West,
Only
Agent
after they have
007
like a
is
bunch
jack
of
all trades when it comes to
monologuing and
kicking
stuff,
Tommy
unless
ass
it's like
and terrorist ass.
goons, pretty
Basically
much.
everyone's ass for the past 60 years. From
But the big
novels
bad
to
guy
the
and
movies
Bond
to the
always
comics
have a
and
huge
he's
monologue
been
between
rebooted
each
tons
other.
of times, but they're all still Bond.
Oh wait, are they
Bond
pulling
is a
from video
master of
games too?
infiltration, disguise,
He's been around in a lot of different
acrobatics,
medium. They pull from
diving,
everything
skiing,
usually.
boating, climbing, horseback riding.
I'm changing my
airplane
pick to
pilot,
Bond.
Swordsman, knife fighter, knife thrower, people thrower.
And deadliest of all, gamer. Bond carries his classic Walter PPK, among the world's first successful double-action semi-automatic pistols. While it only carries 9 rounds, its small size makes it optimal for concealment.
And a microdermal sensor in the grip coded to Bond's fingerprint means only he can fire it.
It even comes with unique ammo that breaks apart upon entry and creates 8 exit wounds, traveling like
Oh,
a bullet
darn.
but hitting like a shotgun.
Yeah, that-
Sounds like a war
Especially
crime.
deadly considering Bond has
Oh,
the
yeah, it's
golden
completely
eye of
illegal.
an expert marksman, able to take out a room
And
of armed
only in the
guards
comics, 'cause that was
second,
never
or
in any
shoot
of the
fuel
movies.
tank of a helicopter
Oh.
from a speeding boat a quarter of a mile away.
He's just as deadly disarmed. Bond combines multiple martial arts like judo, boxing, Krav Maga, Muay Thai, and Jiu-Jitsu, allowing him to keep up even when outnumbered.
This mix of styles is likely the Welsh self-defense system known as Goshinkwai, which is taught by the modern Special Air Service.
Though that all pales in comparison to his greatest ability. F***ing, banging, laying down pipe. He's so
Yep.
proficient at seduction, it actually feels more like a superpower.
Look, we're not kidding. He once seduced a female assassin sent to kill
If
him
they try to
so
pull
thoroughly
him trying to
she
seduce
threw
John
herself
Wick,
in front of the bullet
I might
and
lose it.
she knew him.
That would be great.
Yeah, sometimes Bond does stuff I can only describe as superhero shit. Look at this. So why not follow that impulse and give him some superhero gadgets too?
Developed by MI6's resident quartermaster, Q, Bond's spy gadgetry often complements his knack for problem solving and quick thinking.
He's got a pen that'll explode after 3 clicks and disarm after a 4th, an Omega Seamaster watch that can shoot a laser beam, a cigarette that fires a miniature rocket, and C4 toothpaste that can be remotely detonated. Probably a safer bet than that pen,
Yeah.
especially if you're a compulsive clicker like me. Wait, was I on 3 or 4?
He also occasionally wears a lightweight bulletproof vest, as well as a garrote wire for quiet kills and a grappling hook hidden within his belt buckle.
That's only the semi-normal shit. He's carried earbuds that give him super hearing, X-ray shades, ultrasonic cufflink grenades, a stun
He had
gas
AirPods
keychain,
before
a cell phone
AirPods.
taser,
Yes, AirPods.
control drones, a nanosuit that turns him completely invisible, and a frigging jetpack. You've gotta have a hell of a pair of thunderballs to piss off a crazy Scot riding one of those.
But his greatest weapon is the one, the only,
His dick.
the Aston Martin DB5.
Oh, I thought we were still talking about him. Never mind. This absolute beauty isn't just good looks. She's packing front-mounted machine guns, oil slicks, smoke screens, and of course, the ejector seat. Oh, and good luck trying to break in. This baby is insanely bulletproof. Like, just look at this. It won't stop. Still going. Still going.
Q has provided numerous vehicles over the years with ever more insane features, like a submarine transformation, light-bending holograms, and a remote control built into Bond's phone.
Ah, just look at him, living his best life. And why wouldn't he? He's a globe-trotting ladies' man with the UK Treasury as his personal credit card. He's got the world in the palm of his hand.
But for some, the world is not enough. Though Bond's iterations may vary, one thing remains throughout. Behind that debonair smile and British wit is a broken, soulless shell. A man only good for killing.
I guess it's no surprise that a dude who smokes up
And
to 17
banging.
cigarettes a day and routinely drinks enough to enter a
17 a
coma
day.
might have a death wish.
Now, James wasn't always like this. Not long after getting his 00, he found love, and loved so much, he left the Secret Service behind.
But there are some lives you can't escape, and some lives you can't save, no matter how hard you try. Sometimes all that's left is to kill the love inside you until all that matters is revenge.
There's no denying Bond's psychopathic tendencies. He's killed hundreds of enemy combatants over his career and might just enjoy the act of torture.
But what makes me respect him is he never forgets a pun afterward.
All that hate and regret wrapped up into one man with nothing to live for. The perfect assassin for a dying empire.
Bond is strong enough to hold his own against superhuman henchmen like Oddjob and Jaws, who can lift a van off
Overcame
the ground.
lobotomy with
He
the power
survived
of
being
love.
blasted by a Stinger missile, falling hundreds of feet into a river, and having his eggs scrambled.
At his best, he's even fast enough to dodge gunfire nearly point blank and missiles while in free fall and still shoot people. This is the superhero shit we
game
were
is
talking
that?
about.
Time and time again, he's outsmarted criminal masterminds like Dr. No, Goldfinger, and
Darn.
Scaramanga, the man with the golden gun. He's even bested the worst of them all, his arch nemesis, the international terrorist, Blofeld.
In 2 different timelines, no less. And plot twist, in the second, Blofeld was Bond's long-lost adopted brother. Which, if I recall correctly, also happened in Austin Powers. But that's why we love the old Scottish so-and-so. Who else could escape a giant space laser by kite surfing on a tsunami? What more
I don't
can
think he'd
we
win,
say
but I
about
would love for him to
007?
interject
He's got
himself in the
best
battle.
job in the business, and nobody does it
That would be
better.
good.
This episode of Death Battle is sponsored by Babbel.
It's days like these I wish I could sail the French Riviera, speaking French with the locals. Spanish would be nice too, and Italian, Greek, Mandarin, Farsi, and...
Oh, you barely know how to speak English.
Exactly! If you're like me and there's a
Alright,
foreign
I have
language
to
that you
switch
were
over
not
my
learning
mic
in
real
school,
quick.
it's never
Voice
too
mod's
late to
acting
start
weird.
with Babbel.
Babbel is the
I could
language
still-
learning
I'm
app
still
that
good.
sold more than 10 million subscriptions.
All right, it need to
Thanks to
pause. It's
Babbel's
cool.
addictively fun and easy bite-sized language lessons, you can finally
No, I
press
did
learning
this
that new
once,
language off your list.
last night,
Wait,
too,
did
for
you
some
know
reason.
Le Chen is French for Le Chen?
You only need 10 minutes per lesson and can start speaking conversationally in a new language in as little as 3 weeks.
Babbel's lessons were created by over 150 language experts and are voiced by real native speakers, not computers.
And Babbel's speech recognition
Okay.
technology helps you improve your pronunciation and accent. Start your language
Hello?
learning journey today.
There we go.
Right now, get up to
I hear you.
55% off your subscription when you
Yeah,
go
I
to
don't know why
babbel.com/deathbattle.
I'll just suddenly, like,
That's babbel.com.
it just won't go through my voice mod, which is what I use for my
Babbel, language for life.
gain and stuff. And then it'll just
Oh, yeah.
drop out of OBS for some reason.
Screw up, like really badly, like
But it's all
made the
good.
worst mistake ever. So bad you're just for the rest of your life.
Yes. Let's lay out a hypothetical. You see a car that you
I
like.
see him,
but
I'm
its
just thinking
owner
Game of
won't
Thrones.
sell. So, follow him home, beat him senseless.
Yeah, he
steal
fucked up
his
this
car,
about as much.
And kill his dog.
The dog his beloved wife gifted him after she died very recently. So yeah, pretty big mistake.
And this man, well, he just happens to be the single deadliest assassin in the entire world.
The Baba
He may be
Yaga.
called Baba Yaga, but he's not the boogeyman. He's the one you sent to kill the goddamn boogeyman, John Wick. So yeah, that's one pretty huge mistake.
The full story of this specter is almost non-existent, but rumor has it he was trained by the Ruskaroma crime syndicate from a young age, before moving to America and making a name for himself in its criminal underworld.
Terrifying enough to scare the living daylights out of even the most hardened murderers.
Wick is a master martial artist, combining several schools into an all-purpose fighting style that focuses on maximum efficiency with minimal effort.
Almost no one who has fought him directly has lived to tell the tale. So which specific forms he practices are for his eyes only. So why don't we look at the martial arts used to prepare for the movies by everyone's favorite immortal, Keanu Reeves.
You're
Reeves combines
breathless.
Sambo, Aikido, Judo, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for defensive joint locks, throws, and wrestling moves to avoid as much damage to himself as possible while using his opponent's own weight against them.
Though his go-to is Krav Maga, which is designed to take all the best moves from various martial arts to make the ultimate fighting style.
While most martial arts are designed with other purposes in mind, like exercise, Krav Maga's entire goal is basically murder.
And boy, if that isn't Wick to a T. In his hands, literally anything can be a deadly weapon. Knives, swords, books, his belt. Shit, he once took out 3 guys with a pencil. A
Yep.
number 2 pencil. And thanks to John's precise understanding of the human body, he can target weak points and vital organs with ease.
But thanks to the Continental, he doesn't have to rely on writing utensils to execute his victims.
Imagine a chain of hotels around the world that serve as a front for a whole underground society of assassins. He can consult the wine steward's robust selection.
Pistols, revolvers, submachine guns, assault rifles, shotgun, plastic explosives, it's all on the menu.
Though Wick prefers his Heckler & Koch P30L, a polymer-framed semi-automatic handgun that holds 15 rounds of 9x19 parabellum.
Which he wields like an artist does a paintbrush. Wick can empty entire rooms full of enemies before they can blink, once even taking out 7 armed guards in only 3 seconds.
He's the definition of accurate, almost never missing a shot, and that includes on horseback and motorcycle back. If he's got a view to a kill, you can bet he's taking it.
And he comes literally dressed to kill with his perfectly tailored, tactically lined suit jacket that is completely bulletproof. Even repeated gunshots from close range do nothing to him.
It also helps him blend into the shadows for some sick stealth kills, and even disappear in plain sight like the goddamn Batman.
Wick eventually joined the Tarasov mob and quickly became one of their top enforcers, a grim reaper who hunted their enemies with divine prejudice.
But maybe this Angel of Death was more human than we first thought. After years of being a badass, Wick wanted out of the mob to get married to the love of his life and retire. Wow, I wonder how that first date conversation went. Man, she must have really fallen for him. I guess he put the ass in assassin.
So his boss gave him an impossible task. He could leave if he wiped out every last one of the mob's enemies in a single night. Which he did. Because human or no, he's still John Wick.
I was counting. I can't tell.
And he lived happily ever after. Well, until his former boss's snot-nosed son screwed up. Like, really badly. Great job, Theon. You never miss.
That wasn't just some dog, but a semblance of hope. The opportunity to grieve unalone. His last tether to a happy life. So Wick was back with a vengeance, prepared to kill every last person that got in his way until the whole of New York's criminal underworld had been razed by his bloody crusade.
This entire series started because some dumbass killed his
Wick left
dog.
over 300 bodies in his wake.
If they had just left the
Yes.
dog alive,
Exactly.
it might have been okay.
Like seeing the
If he had not killed the dog, Wick would not have done
He
anything.
survived being stabbed, rammed by cars, shot in the stomach, blown up, mutilated, and knocked off of a 10-story building, all within a fortnight.
Oh, and somewhere in there he found the energy to trek through the Saharan desert. And it's not like his injuries from the previous movie had time to heal, or the ones from the movie before that.
We cannot emphasize this enough. John Wick is unstoppable.
He's strong enough to toss around full-grown men, snap bone, and body slam 2 assassins through a bulletproof glass floor.
Wick absolutely annihilated his former Tarasov employers, the Neapolitan crime family, Kimura, and fended off an international army of assassins attacking him at random, one after the other, every few minutes.
Even after being declared excommunicado by the Continental, bereft of his former resources, he killed every last soldier sent after him by the High Table.
With barely a quantum of solace to rest. Like we said, completely unstoppable. Outgunned, outmanned, it doesn't matter. John Wick lost everything in the
Killed a
world
guy
that
with
meant
a
anything
book.
to him, and that means he won't stop killing until there's no one left, or he dies trying. And good freaking luck with that.
I want to go watch the John Wick
This
movie
episode of
now.
Death Battle is sponsored by Mint Mobile.
After years
They're
of
so
fine-print
good.
contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch.
So when we first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, we thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense.
How has Ryan
There's
Reynolds
one.
just not
Mint
done a
Mobile's
cameo
secret
now
sauce
for
is
this?
that They're the first company to sell wireless service
It's like he
online
doesn't know
only.
they don't use him all the
Cosmic
time for
retail stores and pass
Deadpool.
those sweet savings directly to you.
Yeah.
Mint Mobile's wireless quality is especially impressive, and as a world-class mad scientist, I'm pretty picky.
Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or a family. And at Mint, families start at 2 lines. And all plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
And you get to keep your current phone number along with all your existing contacts.
To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/deathbattle.
That's mintmobile.com/deathbattle. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/deathbattle. All right, the combatants are set. We've run the data through all possibilities.
It's no time to die for a death battle!
I bet they're gonna disappoint me again.
Is not one to be taken lightly. Be careful, 007. And happy hunting.
Your concern is always touching, Q. Vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred. What can I get you, mate? Drinks are on me.
I prefer to be alone.
Unfortunately, I wasn't asking, Baba Yaga. Now you can come with me, or we can do this here.
Killing isn't permitted on company grounds.
Lucky me.
And it's over. John Wick wins.
Seems you've got me at a disadvantage. You won't mind giving a dead man walking one last smoke?
What does MI6 want with me?
Your reputation precedes you. I'll be sure to keep up.
No, you won't.
To be entirely honest, I lost count. What comes around goes around, as they say.
Yeah.
Oh, piss off.
Is it over?
Bond, come in. What's the mission status?
Smashing. Positively smashing.
Oh, do grow up, 007.
Oh, I guess so. Okay.
KO! I never thought Wick could lose, but I guess I'll never say never again. Though his skills and brutal tenacity would have saved Wick initially, against James Bond, you only live twice.
You mean once, right?
I know what I said.
Well, despite all that, Wick met his match in Agent 007.
And match is the optimal word here. Wick may have been an expert martial artist, but Bond has actually practiced several of the same styles Wick has, and has been shown to be just as skilled a fighter, even defeating master martial artist himself.
Wick's ability to shatter a floor of bulletproof glass definitely makes him superhumanly strong, but Bond has fought off similarly powerful henchmen in the past.
And while Wick's speed and accuracy with a gun may look unbeatable, Bond's is just as impressive.
He's landed accurate shots just as well as Wick ever has, but more importantly, he has a faster quick draw.
That's right, despite being played by Neo himself, Wick has never dodged bullets. Bond, on the other hand, has, and that superior speed gave him an edge in both close-quarter combat and on the draw.
Though since both had body armor, the fight probably wasn't going to be won by guns alone. And that's where Bond held his biggest advantage, his gadgets.
There was no way Wick would see an exploding pen or a laser watch coming, and that's the whole point of Bond's gadgets. They're seemingly normal, everyday objects that'll take his enemy by surprise.
Given time, Bond has always used these to come up with game-winning strategies, even against numerically superior foes, especially with his more absurd technology like the invisible nanosuit and remote-controlled explosive drones.
Wick's endurance might be mind-blowing, but he isn't invincible.
He can keep fighting even on death's door, but the deadliness of Bond's trick weapons would not have given him that option.
Diamonds are forever, but against someone just as skilled with an arsenal straight out of science fiction, Wick's luck definitely wasn't. Bond may have been the spy who loved me, but against Wick, he was going to live and let die. And you can bet tomorrow never dies. Nailed it. Look,
I am so angry right now.
It's a combination of gadgets and more material.
Exactly.
That was it.
Hey, if you want more Death Battle ASAP, why not grab a membership?
And they literally
I do think John
they
Wick
made
would be
him.
better in like a basic fight, but
I mean, I would say he was just he would have got him in one shot. Okay. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with Apocalypse whenever that one comes out. I'm gonna just put my bets out right now.
I lean towards it, but I haven't seen any of like the new Black Adam stuff that's come out.
I don't know a lot about Black Adam. I just know it's magic stuff, and Apocalypse does not give a shit about magic as far as I know. So, and he can do like the whole warping of reality bullshit. He's basically Darkseid and Thanos put together kind of thing. So, oh, I would call that one right then and there for that. Yeah, I'm mad. I angy like I normally am at the end of Death Battle.
I think the only time I've gotten really upset with Death Battle is they were on a roll of doing a bunch of like DC versus Marvel, which is just not a fair like.
No,
trial.
it's completely.
I don't know if any of the DC characters ever won any of the battles, but they haven't done one in a while. They got away from it.
Yeah, comic books are hard because they don't have rules pretty much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And I think largely Marvel still grounds itself on like the heroes are mortal, whereas DC's just at the point they're like, no, Batman's a god now. Like,
yeah, Batman can be toe to toe with Superman just cause until Superman decides he's not going to.
Yeah, and pretty much every like hero in DC is just godlike, and that there's no comparison to him.
Yeah, there's no just middle of the road heroes really. Or at least not like anyone would actually know of or care of.
But that was still interesting. I did see the last one, so I'm caught up on Death Battle.
Oh, I've been caught up on them too. I didn't like the Excalibur versus Raiden either. I got mad about that one too.
That was the outcome I expected.
I expected it once they were like, we got a sponsor through Warframe, and I'm like, fuck. You're gonna do my boy dirty like that? Come on.
Well, they did explain that they didn't like use any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Raiden is kind of like still like future Earth tech, whereas Excalibur, everything Warframe is like super sci-fi.
It was the same thing like with this one. It was like, I have tech that just blows whatever you're doing out of the water and you can't counter it because reason. It was like the freezing thing or whatever. It's like your sword don't work because I freeze it. I'll piss off.
Yeah. The one thing actually I did dislike about Excalibur versus Raiden is Warframe has so many like characters, I'm gonna say, just so I don't spoil like the story of Warframe.
Yeah.
And they used a few of them were like, oh well, this Warframe was able to accomplish this, so Excalibur is like has to be able to do that too because they're even.
Yeah,
it's like no, that's
he fought him, so he could obviously do the same thing he could do. It's like, No. It's like, again, going back to Batman and Superman. Batman beat Superman until Superman decided to say, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
They're not in the same league whatsoever. And they have a tendency to do that a lot. When they can't figure out like power levels for one certain character, they're like, well, we kind of know what the other guy can do, so we can kind of say he could do the same thing. Dragon Ball Z is a real bad example of that whenever they try to do those kind of characters.
Yeah. Yeah, they compared like Excalibur, which is supposed to be like a very agile like suit, to like a strength suit of someone who's like super bulky.
He's
and they're like,
ninja.
oh well, they're the same. And I'm like, no, like they could both be very powerful, but they wouldn't be able to accomplish the same feats.
Right.
I think for me, I'm gonna be about done streaming. Are you gonna continue for a bit?
It's almost 1:30. Part of me wants to start Stardew, but I might just go ahead and watch another Nexpo video instead, just so I can spend an hour, because I don't think an hour is going to be long enough to get really anything in the Stardew yet.
Yeah, actually, I don't know how long a like day in Stardew is.
It's 30 minutes, maybe 20.
Each day. Okay, well,
I've done it on the Switch, so I think it's something like that. If you go from just running around, if you don't force yourself to go to sleep, that's usually what stops you, is your stamina in the beginning, for sure.
Yeah, the first, I can't remember if the first or the second season's like the roughest, because you don't even have the hot spring to get your energy back.
Oh yeah,
so it's like super often you're like, well, I'm just done because I'm out of energy, but I still have half the day left.
Yeah, in the whole first year, you really can't compete with any like the festival stuff or anything, because you're just spending that whole time trying to pick whatever you're doing to get yourself, proficient in it. Yeah, so I think I'll start that one other night when I actually just dedicate a whole stream to that one and I don't actually watch anything. So I'll probably stop. I'll probably just do a Nexpo video and call it a night after that. So like an hour video.
Okay. I did, just for reference, find out if you, for Stardew Valley, if you go the full 20 hours, so 6 a.m. to 2 a.m., that's about little over 14 minutes IRL.
Only 14 minutes?
That's what it says. A bit over 14 minutes.
It's about what I
know
thought.
that the desert cave does slow down your time. I don't know if there's anywhere else in the game that does, though.
I don't think so. I mean, not you're still on the clock if you're in the mines or anything like that. Yeah, I think it's just the cave. And that's just because that's in-game material anyway. So they just are like, hey, screw it. You don't need to worry about anything anymore. Because by that,
I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm just gonna wrap up and say bye to people, and then I'll raid into you. I'll hang out in your chat for a bit.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get this video ready to start up.
Okay, I'll see you in a minute. Later.
Yeah, I'm really angry the fact that John Wick lost that one. That is BS in my opinion. But yeah, I get it. He's got gadgets. I just still see at the very beginning, even their little thing, he's got the gun to him and Wick pushes him off, and that first shot, he should have been dead. Doesn't matter. But Bond's been around for like almost a century worth of material. If they went off the books and everything else, it's like 7 decades of movies. And, Wick's only had 3 or 4. So I get it. I don't like it. So to palate cleanse a little bit, let's watch something spooky. Let's see what Local 58 is supposed to be, another analog horror thing that Nexpo did a long run on. Leon, hello. Welcome over to this part of the cringe. Let me try to get this leveled better. Okay. Did you at least accomplish most of what you wanted to do today, Leon?
Local 58. The brainchild of a man by the name of Chris Straub.
Spooky stuff, Leon. We're watching
Back in August
spooky
of
stuff.
2018, I uploaded a video titled, "What is Local 58?" Back at that point in time, there were just 5 videos in the series catalog, and I attempted, to the best of my ability, to deduce and construct both a logical timeline and a set of theories that could have explained what this anthology
But you said you
was
had
trying
like,
to
what,
convey.
6 or some quests you wanted to get done today?
Since then,
Did you get them all done?
You guys
Or?
have been vocal. It's become somewhat of an expectation to find comments on my posts, videos, and tweets asking about the series. But why?
Yeah, you said you can do a lot of stuff when you're
As
just
it
pretty
turns
much
out, Local
reading
58
or
didn't end a year and a half
watching
ago.
something.
It never left.
That's why I said that game is like
According
half
to this
idle
myriad
game in
of
my opinion. You
requesters,
just have
they've
to,
uploaded
it's one
them
step
since
above
then,
because you
and
have to pay
apparently
attention.
These new videos are pivotal to our investigation.
Because it'll log you out and all that.
With this in mind, I figured I'd give in. You got me. Let's give it one more run. Tonight, we're tuning into manipulative television, better known as Local 58.
I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, games with a lot of different skills in them are good. I just feel like that one's got like too much. But it's got like what?
On Monday,
How old is
October
it?
28th,
25
2015,
years?
a web
The
cartoonist
original?
and online creator by the name of Chris Straub would give
It was
birth
like
to a web
EverQuest
series
era,
by the
right?
name of Local 58. Taking place in Mason County, West Virginia, the same region as his other works, Brood Hollow, Candle Cove, and Itchor Falls, Straub has constructed an extremely complex narrative that appears to center on themes surrounding mass suicide, imminent danger, and hypnosis.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like when they do face stuff.
The series' original home was at a now-defunct website by the name of local58.info, where curious onlookers would encounter nothing but a simple black screen with the most recent upload front and center. The channel's catalog encompasses just 8 videos spread across what they call
I think it's
2
EverQuest
seasons.
era.
In the mix,
I want
we
to
have
say it's 20
Contingency,
years.
You're on the fastest available routes,
Something
Weather
like that.
Service, Show for Children,
Maybe just
Real
the end
Sleep,
of 90s.
Sky Watching, and 2 channel trailers, A Look Back and Station ID.
So it makes sense there's a lot to do in it.
brevity's sake,
It's kind of cool
we
they
won't
got
dive
all
much
those
into the
mini
last
quests
2,
and stuff.
as I
How
don't
you were
see
doing like
very
the
much
quiz
weight in
stuff to
regards
get
to
through that
making
one
headway
maze
into
and
this
things.
investigation.
The variety
But
seems
rather,
good. But in
we'll
an old
hone
school
in on
one
the
like
big
that,
6, the
you
main
can do a
ones
lot
that
more
carry
than
the
say
real
like World of
brunt
Warcraft,
that
where
this
it's like
cryptic broadcast station has to
your
offer.
option is kill this thing or collect this thing.
Let's take it back.
And maybe like some tiny
the
thing
top.
in between.
Local 58.
Is EverQuest still got a decent population? I don't remember if that fully fell off yet or not.
Before you go, stay tuned for a quick message.
I know there's still some diehards.
The following footage will contain a full reanalyzation of various network broadcasts that have occurred on our partner station, Local 58. Much of what you'll witness will be material that you've experienced in prior coverage. However, a new angle will be taken, combined with their newest recordings, to ensure that tonight's viewing experience is a pleasant one. If you'd like to skip directly
This
to
isn't gonna
analysis
be
of the new
pleasant at all.
recordings, please fast forward to the time shown on your television now. Tonight's broadcast is made possible through small contributions made to patreon.com/Nexpo and by viewers like you.
Oh my god, he did it. Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, that's still good diehard numbers and stuff like that. I mean, even if they have a couple servers going, you can still get a decent amount done with that many people on at least a server or two. I just wonder how much actual development time gets put into it.
Contingency.
He said
By
the
far
thing!
one of the most popular and also most disturbing episodes in the Local 58 catalog, and for good reason. The reason it's up first on our list is due to the fact that, in comparison with each of the other episodes, this one appears to contain the most archaic video distortions. The rough broadcast time period that I deduced from my previous coverage was somewhere in the range of the late 1960s to the early 1970s, which we'll get into in more detail shortly. The video opens up ordinarily, taking
My
place at
VODs
around
seem
3
pretty
a.m.
decent.
Local 58's
How about
wrapping up
on
their
your end? Am I
broadcast
any
day as
jittery
normal.
or jumpy or anything
But
like
then,
that?
things would quickly turn
'Cause
sour.
it doesn't look like I'm losing
Right
too
after
bad
their
at
conclusion
frames.
message,
I mean, for
we're met
what
with the
internet I
title card.
have.
A contingency message reel displayed by the United States Department for the Preservation of American Dignity. This is to be used in the event of a United States complete surrender to insurmountable enemy forces. Public broadcast only upon confirmed condition. That doesn't sound good, especially if it's shown this late on public access television.
That's good.
Personally, if I were up this late, I'd drop everything I'm doing and tune in. The next frame then displays the following. Contingency message will now begin. Please comply with the following instructions. God bless America. And then we're shown this.
The worst has come to pass. Despite the sacrifices of our citizens and the might of our armed forces, the United States has been forced to surrender to her enemy. Though they may occupy our borders, our streets, our homes, the enemy will never occupy our spirit. That is a glitch. Know that I have already taken action in the company of family and loved ones. Know all Americans, every woman and child are called upon to act. Even in defeat, we claim victory.
My prior statement regarding this taking place during the 1960s is an inaccuracy for the following reason. As we can see, the signature of US President Lyndon B. Johnson appears at the end of the message. If we can recall, his presidency took place between 1963 and 1969, but if we back up and observe the opening title card, we'll notice that the background image contains an astronaut from the Apollo 11 mission. Doing further research on that photo itself reveals that it was taken on August 1st of 1971, effectively cementing the fact that my initial time frame was entirely incorrect. Anyway, after this message, various screens showing flowers, skylines, and American flags are shown, with the following text overlaid onto them. Act immediately. Honor liberty by taking the final and greatest liberty of all. It's a privilege to be called to action. You take America with you. Each will be remembered. Use the method most available to you at this time. Your courage will inspire others. There is nothing to fear. The time has come. Access to a loaded firearm is ideal. Place muzzle upward to roof of mouth. Thank you. Join your neighbors, your family, your God. As a citizen, you must act now. Local law enforcement has been ordered to ensure your compliance. It's against the law to delay. This message will repeat until there are none to read it. If there is time, victory position. Remember the three F's.
Position.
Front lawn. Face up. Feet together. Infants and pets, the smallest patriots. As we've gathered by this point, they're asking each and every American citizen to kill themselves and their children with a firearm. Some unfathomable power has threatened the US so badly that fighting back isn't even an option. They're helpless, but the government's so wrapped up in getting a leg up on whatever this imminent danger is that they're preemptively telling everyone to kill themselves to avoid total humiliation. Remember, even in defeat, we claim victory. And nothing's more manipulative than that. To close off the episode,
I think with the way the world is right now, that is even darker to think about. We apologize for the interruption. hoax
While Local 58
tendency or
apologizes for the
something?
interruption, the hoax apology card that's shown thereafter cements the fact that this wasn't an accident. Local 58 wanted you to see this. They planned it.
Do not use after 1975. Show for children. SpongeBob, Teletubbies, Thomas the Tank Engine. All of them terrifying.
Show for children.
At midnight.
Here, we can observe an updated styling for the Local 58 brand, implying that we've jumped forward in time. I missed this in my prior coverage, but this segment contains VHS distortions at the beginning, implying that this took place sometime after 1976. Interestingly, the actual broadcast that we're about to get into jumps from this to a very early cartoon.
Screw that clown.
Grain, leading me to believe that whatever they're going to show us is a pre-planned recording of something from the past. Tonight's lineup is of 4 shows. Show for Children at 4:15 a.m., Community Roundtable at 5, Focus on Culture at 5:20, and Morning Local News at 6:05.
Culture, always important.
Interestingly, Show for Children is playing at an extremely unorthodox hour, where, unless you were up all night watching Adult Swim, an extremely small niche of children would be awake. So who is the intended audience? The next frame shows a transition card with a creepy clown head from a carnival, and following this, we finally get to the show. A grave mistake, featuring a cheerful little character known as Kadav. Now, a quick side note. Kadav, in actuality, is a character in Chris Straub's series of Brood Hollow comics. They're actually pretty good if you ever decide to check them out, but that's another story for another time. The point I'm making here is this effectively solidifies the point that Local 58 contains some level of crossover with his other works. The actual extent of these crossovers remains to be seen, but definitely keep this in mind. So, when the show actually begins, we're able to observe Kadav walking through a graveyard, with the moon eerily smiling down at him. Kadav seems to be in high spirits, with nothing appearing to have gone awry. But shortly, we'll notice that over the course of the episode, he becomes increasingly more disturbed by his encounters.
I hate old film reel audio like this. It starts with that, it can only get worse, right? What the hell? Nope. Nope. Oh, even the moon isn't happy about this one. You didn't have to go down there. You could have just went home. He was in a cave. Why was there a moon or something in the cave?
Front lawn. Face up. Feet together. Kadav did this and he died. But it wasn't by gunshots. It wasn't by any sort of direct suicide. His entire body was stripped to an even more gruesome depiction of bones after the moon panned over the shots, which leaves me to wonder, was the moon this so-called insurmountable enemy force that was referenced in Contingency? Nah, that's crazy. This is just a cartoon, and the moon's the moon. Surely it can't be killing people, could it? Right?
Yeah,
right?
Sure. We've all watched anime. The moon is evil. The moon is absolutely evil. Naruto taught us that one. Real sleep.
Real Sleep, 1983.
This isn't cute anymore. Yeah, I don't think it was cute for a while there. Thought Research Initiative.
This video opens up with yet another overhaul of the local.
And about 3/4 of the people watching this went, "What the hell's a video cassette?"
We're shown that at 3 o'clock p.m. in broad daylight, this stuff's still happening. The broadcast this time appears to be a recording of a personal videotape for a man named Philip Gerhardt, created by something called the Thought Research Initiative. The video appears to be some sort of instructional guide intended to alter the sleep state of this individual. If we back up and really observe that first slide, we can notice that this cassette is non-transferable, with Philip's ID number shown as being 750117. This effectively implies that there are other tapes like this. So where are these people? What's on theirs? Unfortunately, we'll never know the answer to that question, but what we do know is that we have a contradiction. Let's play it back from the beginning.
That's like they put a video cassette in and that's what started it.
See that? This isn't a broadcast. It's a full personal feed of someone's television screen. For some reason or another, the TV viewer was watching their local broadcasting before seemingly inserting a VHS of this real sleep tape after being reminded to do so. This leads me to wonder. It almost seems like a full playback of something that a third party was tasked with monitoring. That would be one of the only ways to explain why this episode plays out like a real-time reaction to a reminder prompt, displaying the VHS status and all. With that in mind, let's press on and see what we have to work with. The real sleep tape is divided into 3 main sections. The first involves a fact versus fiction questionnaire about various sleep-related topics. Among them, they make various claims, such as the fact that dreaming during rapid eye movement sleep is merely correlational, not causal. Dreaming is not necessary for regular sleep function, and that 8 hours of sleep is beneficial for both the mind and body. However, these benefits are burdened by frantic nonsensical images and auditory hallucinations we call dreaming. Dreaming is the vestige of a primitive mind.
I agree with all these statements.
But if you ask me, this is yet another contradiction.
I want to know why section 1 starts on page 7.
The TRI states that dreaming is correlational to REM
forward
sleep,
and
not
table
causal,
contents
but
you need
constantly goes forth to denounce the necessity of dreaming. So which is it? The second section involves something called the Kleinman map. According to the video, it's defined as an index of electric activity in a brain burdened by dream stimuli. Once mapped, this activity can be triggered by other controlled stimuli, including via the visual cortex. From what I gather here, they're essentially saying that they can alter your brain states with mere visual stimulation. Whether it be lighting, imagery, or hypnotic patterns, they can manipulate you, achieving their desired outcome whenever they need to. If you aren't already weirded out by the methods employed by this bizarre organization, oh buddy, just wait.
And you can do the opposite with the inverse of the map.
Section 3. Inducing your anti-dream. Close your workbooks and watch the screen.
No two minds are alike. This instructional video was customized for you using the personalized something of your Kitman map or whatever. Alright, I'm ready. I'm looking at my TV. No, I don't want to look at my TV anymore. I don't like it. I do not like this. I hate when faces are messed up in things. Oh, that is freaking creepy. There are no faces. There is no face. That's a face. I don't like it. There are no faces. There are no faces. Read each one. Okay, I can't read that fast. Primitive something. Good night! Damn it. Why is the face still burnt into that picture? I don't like it. Exactly, I don't like it. I'm glad we're on the same page there, Leon. I really don't. Do not talk to a doctor?
You up? So what just happened there? This last section seemed to be divided up into 3 subsections and appeared to employ some sort of face distortion effect in each one. I'm just kidding. It's a brain game. I'll explain in a minute. The first subsection is titled Visual Calibration, and here we can see a set of faces that are lit up from various angles. The title of this one implies that they're merely hitting your brain's reset button, greasing the gears, per se, for the real sleep exercise that'll soon follow. Anyway, the exercise plays out, and you observe a few seconds of eerily lit, albeit normal looking faces.
Normal.
Subsection 2, Cortical Memory. Here, we get more of the same, except we have 2 sets of faces instead of 1. This is a mind game, and as we can recall from our prior instruction, we need to be staring at the center of the television at all times. As you may have noticed by doing this, the faces on each side begin to appear distorted, even though in reality, they aren't.
Oh my
this
god,
presents
I
the
didn't
question
notice that.
of why they're trying so hard to distort our view of other faces. Are they trying to get Philip to freak out around other people? To see
I didn't
others
do the
as nothing
center
but a
looking
warped
thing at
figment of his
first. I just
fragile
looked at the faces
imagination?
and hated it.
That would drive
But
someone
no,
to
it does. It
insanity.
makes them look so
But I wouldn't
weird.
put that past Local 58. Quick fun fact. This phenomenon's actually a real-life experiment. Example coming in 3, 2, 1. Stare at the center of your television.
Oh, I don't like it. Oh, I don't like it. Most of them have one eye. Oh, no, no, no. And I looked over. They are normal pictures, but I do not like that.
Creepy, isn't it? Subsection
Hey,
3,
Benjamin. It's good to see you
ablation
again,
of
man.
subconscious. In other words, surgical removal.
I'm scared.
Of subconscious. Here they asked you to repeat the phrase, "There are no faces," as a myriad of disturbingly warped imagery flashes before
You're not
you.
having fun, Leon.
This is in line with our theme of human perception and their desire to warp our view of other people. There are no faces, combined with the title, Ablation of Subconscious, is beginning to drive the point home that they want to isolate you.
Did you have a good day, Benjamin?
You lose control.
Or,
so they can gain
yeah,
it.
Benjamin, I think. Sorry, man.
Subsection 4, Acceptance. Here, we're told to read without reading. Mostly impossible unless you have a superpower. Don't worry though, I read them for you, and I picked out a few of the good ones. Only the awake may think. I dream the world awake. Sleep is pretend. I will never dream again. Stay out of your bedroom. When we sleep, we die. Dreaming is a cancer on the face of sleep. We
I'm
are
doing
not
good,
meant
man.
to dream.
Just got done watching
So going by what this cassette is
Death
telling
Battle
us,
with Leon.
they don't want us to dream,
I hated it.
but they don't want us to sleep either.
And decided to
It
start
seems almost
watching
like a
this
far cry from the
to
tone at the
kill the
beginning
rest of
when
the
they were telling
stream.
us
And
how pivotal REM
I
sleep
hate
is
it.
for the mind and body.
I hate
So I'll ask
space
again,
things.
which
And
is
this
it?
guy did it.
Is sleep good or not? I'm sure we all know the answer to that. But for a quick second, take a look at this. What on this screen is not like the others? I'll give you a minute. Alright, time's up. His name, the font. It doesn't have a drop shadow and appears as if it was placed there in post-production. With that in mind,
Hey,
let's
if you got
move
nothing
forward
to
the third
complain about,
section
man,
again,
then
as the
it was a
message
good
on the
day.
screen stood out to me. No two minds are alike. This instructional video was customized for you using your personalized Kleitman map. Immediately after this, we can notice that the font changes to something similar to what we observed with Philip's name and remains as such until the very end. This tape was altered. Whatever it is that we're seeing in the last two sections was placed there intentionally and is likely different from not only the original copy, but also from the various other versions that were made for other participants. So, Real Sleep, a personalized tape filled with anti-dream and anti-sleep propaganda, intermixed with brain games involving distorting our view of other people's faces, and hypnosis. Got it.
Yeah, I do not like that. I already suffer from a slight case of what they call face blindness. I don't remember faces at all. So that messed with me bad. I like the haircut of the character. He has a second one and it's mullet style.
Skywatching, 1994. Here, Local 58's rebranded once more and has a lineup of just 3 shows. Skywatching, City
What
Council
character?
meeting, and paid programming.
Did I miss something?
Afterwards, we're able to notice the Skywatching show attempt to begin before it's hijacked by someone's personal recording with the same name.
Orion? Yeah. The truth is very original. You only have to configure the shadows, the frames, the movement, and the pixels.
The video starts out innocent enough. Whoever's filming pans over various well-known constellations, such as Orion's belt.
I'm guessing
and
you're
Pleiades.
talking about
Though, halfway through the video,
stuff
it
in
gets
the
a little
video.
strange.
I'm guessing.
After swapping out
How you can
kind of
see how they did some
to
stuff.
the moon, we observe the caption, "His throne." And then they zoom in, revealing that the moon is not inanimate. It's a fleshy, organic, and disturbingly alive body of mass.
Yeah, I've been enjoying these. I used to do them with like not the VTuber out of avatar, and I don't know, I just couldn't like actually open up or anything. I guess partially my social anxiety. But since I started doing streams like this, it's been a lot easier. But yeah, thanks for the motivation, man. Whatever you're working on, dude, keep with it. Well, thank you. I don't think I've ever heard relaxing was my voice, but I'll try harder. What is going into the moon? The moon is the avatar. That's one hell
Clearly,
of a
this
freaking
person
telescope
shocked by
this
what they
guy's got.
found, and for good reason. Something they presumed to be nothing but a gargantuan rock orbiting Earth was in actuality covered in artificial craters and is transferring some sort of organic matter on its surface. Clearly something's
Leon,
going on up
is
there.
this
Something
is this doing
sinister.
something for you, Leon?
But
I hope
what?
so. I don't know English. I understand something. For example, hello, my name. Thank you. And I understand something of what you are talking about. I mean, hey, I'm trying to maybe keep it to where you can kind of understand it. I get that, you know, English isn't everybody's first language. It's barely mine. So, I mean, if I ever gotta slow something down or repeat it, just feel free to tell me. What's he doing? Is he hailing them? Ugh. Rejoice. Yeah, I don't get it either. Something to do with the moon.
So the moon is hypnotizing people. This could have been useful last time I covered this. Once
But
we get
nah,
that in-focus
if you
shot
ever
of the
need me
moon
to
when
like
it
repeat
reappears,
something,
we can
if I
finally
go
see
too
the full
fast, because
picture.
sometimes I
Some sort of dark
start
matter is
just
consuming
going
it from
quick
the bottom
for no
to
reason.
the top.
Just feel free to
This is
have me
not a
repeat
natural
it.
moon
That's fine.
crescent. Something's overtaken it and is either utilizing its proximity to Earth to brainwash people, or the moon's been this way this entire time. Just up until now, we never knew it.
Praise the moon.
Then again, this sort of thing was referenced back in Show for Children. Why, around 25 years later, are people still accidentally discovering this?
I should change my information. There we go. Weather service. Ollie, what's the weather going to be like? It's going to rain!
On the back of what we learned in Real Sleep, Weather Service is a broadcast that we'll soon be able to formulate some ties to. Here, Local 58's once again showing their channel lineup before a sudden emergency broadcast takes place. Before we get to that though, you might notice that their lineup visual styling matches that of which we saw back in Real Sleep. This
I
further
think you would
supports
do
the
very
idea
well if
that the
you were
VHS
from
that
the
was played back in
Spanish-speaking
that
community,
one was in fact
because you
a
have very
recording
good
over the
humor,
Local 58
very
channel
entertaining
and not
streams,
a
and
live
relaxing
broadcast.
voice. Again, thank you.
Anyway, Weather Service, emergency broadcast.
I tried learning
Let's see what
Spanish at
happens.
one point. I had to for going to college the first time. I just can't wrap my head around other languages very well. I've tried Japanese as well. I get like here's and there's with it. And I think if I was actually in the culture, I could pick it up better, but learning from a book, it's just way too hard. It continues until sunrise tomorrow. Citizens are advised not to observe this event with the naked eye. But yeah, I appreciate the compliments, man. That definitely helps motivate me to, you know, that helps motivate me to try to continue doing what I'm doing. At least around my school days, since they'll be starting up again since Labor Day's over. It'll probably cut me down to maybe 1 or 2 days a week instead of like every day like I've been trying. But, I mean, if you like me, you'll like Leon as well. And he streams almost every day. He's great. Do you eat meat? If you eat meat, close your eyes as a character or something like that. I understand. I wanted to talk to you about food, but I'm afraid you're vegetarian or vegan or something, because they always get angry, and that's why I asked before I was a vegetarian, but I would never force others. Hey, everybody's got their own preference. I'm not a picky eater. I eat whatever. I like going out for a good like steak and stuff. Food's food. I like food. I like eyes, not like blood. I drown in him. What? If you are afraid, we will look together. Will you hold my hand at least? Cup the cheeks.
What in the mother of God was that? We just had a weather alert.
But yeah,
nothing big.
If you like me, check if Leon's still in the chat, check his streams out. He's real good as well, and he's
saying to stay indoors,
real informative,
to go outside,
and he's the same way, real calm about everything. He doesn't have like a lot of rage streams or anything like that.
Local 58 appears to regain control before being taken over once more, displaying the following.
It's in the light. The moon came in. He found me through the mirror. Moonlight white. White like eyes. Not light, but blood. I drown in him. If you are afraid, we will look together.
You say every night except for that, but half the time you'll still be on.
This narrative essentially takes us through the experiences of someone that accidentally observed moonlight through a mirror.
Especially if like old school RuneScape, I think we have a new addict here.
In some sort of hypnotic trance, just like the person in Skywatching. Interestingly, whoever it is that's typing this refers to the moon as a him, driving home the point.
And if I'm not streaming, I'm probably in his chat bugging him, so.
Like we assumed, it's something much darker. At this point, I'm led to believe that the person hijacking this broadcast
you came to Argentina, you would be a millionaire because there is a lot of inflation here. Compared to the US, everything is too cheap for us.
We can hear it.
It's very expensive, but there are different economies. I mean, with a dollar, you dominate Argentina. If the conversion rate is that good. I mean, I'm still a broke college kid either way. I don't think I really have anything to take with me, even if I did. Yeah, and the inflation stuff's kind of ridiculous right now.
New broadcast, same styling, 2014. Tonight's lineup encompasses just 2 shows. The Midnight Movie at 12:05 and paid programming at 1:55. Soon after we see this, someone starts backspacing the paid programming text, presumably to warn the viewer on what's about to happen.
Proceed to the highlighted route. Continue on Holbrook Park Drive, then in 500 feet turn right onto North 38th Street.
November 21st, 2014.
2 hours and 28 minutes. Turn right onto North 38th Street.
I like and hate GPSs at the same time. Like, it makes getting the places great, but, and I'm sure this is gonna do it, I hate listening to her voice so much.
Turn left onto Merritt Parkway, then take the on-ramp to Highway 114 North.
Hey, yeah, you take care, Benjamin. Have a good rest of your night or whatever it is for you.
In 10 miles, take exit 17, then turn right onto Quarry.
Same with you, Leon. It's past 2 o'clock.
You are on the fastest route.
You're saying you're going. Let's see if you actually do this time, or if that game catches you
various
some more.
parts of this person's drive. As it turns out,
so good night,
we're doing
man.
this for the better part of the night, all guided by some sort of GPS. Oddly, this navigation system doesn't take this person to any sort of legitimate destination. Instead, it takes them to the ass-crack middle of nowhere in some dark wooded area.
My house.
I'm not entirely sure that this would be a spot that you could specifically route to, but hey,
my house.
The GPS is always right, isn't it? Just like TV. Afterwards, the driver then encounters the following.
Rerouting. Make a U-turn. Your destination is behind you. Rerouting. In 500 feet. Your destination will be on in 300 feet. Your destination in 250 feet. Rerouting. Your destination will be in 50 feet. You will arrive at your destination.
Okay, like I said, I hate GPSs.
You have arrived.
So it like purposely took him to that
the
thing?
basis of my theorization just a year and a half ago. My incorrect theorization, because back then we didn't have real sleep or sky watching. This person's been up all night driving for seemingly no good reason and appears to be indirectly following the simple instruction outlined by the Real Sleep VHS. To stay awake, because dreaming is the vestige of a primitive mind. It's safe to say that the creature that we're seeing before us is a product of this person's warped mind, a result of the hours of so-called sleep experiments that they've had to endure. They're losing grip on
Then how's it on
reality
camera?
and blindly obeying the various forms of interactive media at their disposal. The TV, the real sleep tape, and the navigation system. But what about Local 58? Why are they involved in such a complex and seemingly sinister operation that's disintegrating people's sanity?
I don't like to say that's just a figment of his mind if it's on tape. Like if you were seeing it from his point of view, maybe, and maybe it gets explained later, but I don't like that explanation. If it's on tape, it's gotta be a thing. Investigation.
With the warring broadcast instructions outlined in Weather
Avoid
Service,
mirrors.
combined
Don't
with the
look
real
up.
sleep experiments and the sky watching tape, I'm led to believe that there's some sort of widespread mind control operation going on here. Fundamentally,
thought I heard
we need to
something
back up to real sleep and take a hard look at the company running the operation. The TRI. They've only shown up in one video, but they're our key to piecing this together. I believe this organization knows that the moon is apocalyptically brainwashing people, and has since the very beginning. Evident by their tagline and their channel trailer, they've been researching this longer than most might believe. Local 58 isn't public access.
Okay.
It's run by the TRI. Going by the primitiveness of the channel trailer opening, I'm hard-pressed to believe that they discovered the ill effects of moonlight on humans sometime in the 1930s and began research on this because they wanted to utilize it for their own gain, for population control, and for power. Think Umbrella Corporation. These people are probably walled off and barricaded while they use the world's population as subjects for their deranged science experiments. To subtly condition you about the early stages of their research, they broadcast a contingency, a way to see how you'd react to on-screen media.
So is it only
Surely if it's
certain
on TV,
people are affected
it has
by the
to be
moon?
real, right? Then comes Show for Children. The kids need conditioning too. And then in Real Sleep, we discover in another department of their studies, they're gathering participants for this so-called sleep study. That's in
That's too real.
actuality a wild hypnotic experiment aimed
Hate
at
it.
keeping you
Still
awake
hate
during
it.
the nights. If you're up past dawn, then maybe you just might go outside and catch a glimpse of the moon. In skywatching, we witness this firsthand. The moon's alive, almost like it's some sort of eldritch abomination, which, if you're unaware, is a creature defined by its disregard for the natural laws of the universe as we understand them. They cannot be described by anything inherently natural and exist as powerful, otherworldly beings. To me, it appears that the dark shroud consuming the moon might be some sort of transformative shift from an inanimate rock into one of these beings. The TRI discovered this in its early stages and are observing the worldwide effects from their barricaded research lab. You might recall during the skywatching segment that I questioned why people were discovering the ill effects of the moon over the course of decades.
Yeah.
Surely, if this were some constant phenomenon, then the entire population would be brainwashed in a matter of days. There is something I found though that might be able to explain this. I'm sure most of you have heard of Tempest Films. No? Channel 7? Analog Archives? Anyway, the creator's name is Aiden Chick, and he submitted a post on May 14th of 2019 in the Local 58 subreddits outlining a theory that holds some considerable weight. It reads the following. The story of Local 58's been right in front of us the whole time. By far the most popular theory about the story of Local 58 is the alien theory, which basically states that an alien race is hijacking the television signals and sending eerie messages. Some say that the being in "you are on the fastest available routes" is basically confirmation that we're dealing with aliens here. Although this theory makes sense on the surface, I don't think this is actually what Chris was going for, and personally I don't find it very scary. But we never really stopped to consider Chris Straub's other works, aside from Candle Cove. We'll get into Candle Cove in a bit though. The first thing I want to point out is the interconnected universe. The major works we'll be discussing are Itchor Falls, Brood Hollow, and Candle Cove, all of which take place in Mason County, West Virginia. And that's right, Local 58 takes place there as well. So what can we pull out of this? Well, it means that Local 58's another story in the Mason County tales, and a lot of the events in this series are pulled from others. Take Itchor Falls, for example, a town that's been abandoned for years after a chemical accident. When real estate companies try to repopulate the place, they're met with fearsome creatures that look incredibly similar to the creature from You're on the Fastest Available Route. In addition, the event in which they appear in is referred to the Blood Harvest, which very well may be the same event mentioned in Weather Service. And what about real sleep? Well, in the Candle Cove book, there's a story about an ancient creature that can enter people's dreams. All things considered, the moon's probably the latest addition to Chris Straub's ever-growing collection.
Big if
With
true.
this in mind,
That's actually really cool.
Local 58 seems to exist in an interconnected universe, and this has been right under our nose this entire time. The reason the entire world isn't brainwashed is likely because this phenomenon happens during the aforementioned Blood Harvest, which could either be an annual event or something that occurs on extremely rare occasion. I liken it to something similar to a full moon on a Friday the 13th. As we can see in the attached image, people that are brainwashed become transformed into ravaged monsters that they've named Savagers. Going offhand here, and I could be wrong, but this image could be taking place during a time frame that postdates the events playing out during the Local 58 era. In our current timeline, we could merely be observing the very early psychological shift of these various people, and their endgame just might be a full transformation into one of these experimental abominations. With this in mind, all of this seems to be heavily catalyzed by the Thought Research Initiative to not only control the world's population, but also observe what might happen when they undergo their conversion. The thing is, we've learned through years of zombie apocalypse media that this never ends up good. They'll get what's coming, and it's only a matter of time.
I do like the simulations to Umbrella. That's kind of cool. It does feel a little bit like a stretch though, but at least it makes more sense than what was going on in Gemini, because there seems to only hopefully be one.
What merely started as an unrelated set of incoherent videos centering on a local public broadcast station has bloomed into a disturbing and interconnected foundation of lore, incorporating themes centered on hypnosis, disturbing broadcast hijackings, and subliminal manipulation. Whether or not the moon is actually some sort of eldritch abomination, or if this is actually all part of some extended universe, I'm certain on my conjecture that the Thought Research Initiative are the ones behind Local 58. The station isn't independently run, and never has been. It's manipulative television run by an organization that's set out to control you. Whether or not you let it happen rests solely on your ability to resist temptation, subliminal messaging, and attempts at brainwashing. Don't look at the moon. Stay indoors. Question local broadcasting. And just in case, always remember the victory position. Front lawn. Face up. Feet together. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. I love you all. and good night.
That feels like it went a lot quicker than it really did. Gonna let the music on that play, but I'm gonna see if there was anything else worth checking out. I want to save Walt files for later. Same with Mandela. You know what? I think I'm gonna move some stuff real quick so I can get back in order. And I'm gonna watch a couple more of these
To
SCP
interact with
animations.
those who have been affected by this disaster. Do not
There we
touch
go.
them. Do not let them into your home. Do not speak to
This
them.
is about
Again,
SCP-001,
please remain calm. Help is on
which
the
is
way.
apparently
He
the
doesn't know
sun,
if the words are true.
which if
He
you
only
look at
knows
it,
that it's his
or
responsibility
you get
to
affected
give
by
the
it,
people home,
or even
something
moonlight,
familiar
you
they can
melt.
turn to when nothing makes sense. The camera switches off. He covers his face and lets the tears loose. Hour 8. In spite of the pleas from newscasters, people are very much panicking. How could they not? Everything's descended into absolute mayhem, and it's only been 8 hours since it all began. Unfortunately, where there is panic, there's someone trying to make a quick buck off of their fellow man. Even more unfortunately, the internet is still up and running so far. And with survivors taking to social media to live tweet
Yeah,
their
I just
experiences and
found
post as much as they can on Instagram, Facebook, and anywhere else they can reach out for help, it is the perfect environment for scammers. A Twitter thread goes viral claiming that wrapping oneself in aluminum foil will protect against the effects of the light. Facebook posts circulate, hawking all sorts of natural remedies and super sunscreens from essential oil blends to bacon grease. A fraudulent GoFundMe page pops up, claiming to belong to a climate scientist raising money for a ray gun that will reverse the damage done to the Earth's atmosphere, which he cites as the cause of the destruction. Hour 9. Not all the information circulating online is false, however. A video is posted on TikTok with the caption, "These mofos can talk," featuring video of a teenage boy cowering in a dark room.
If the end of the world
as
was
one of the
happening,
formerly
TikTok
human flesh creatures
would be like
moves
the
around
first place you go.
outside the door.
It'd be
After a moment or
TikTok
two of
and
silence, a garbled
Instagram.
voice calls out to him.
Brian, come outside. Please come out into the sun. I miss you.
The video's comments are filled with other users sharing similar experiences, saying, "It talked just like my boyfriend. It barked like a dog," or even, "It was singing my favorite Ariana Grande song." Similar videos pop up in the wake of this first recording, urging survivors to ignore
Not
the voices,
Grande.
no matter who they seem like they belong to. Hour 10. While some people are using the internet to spread helpful information on the nature of the events outside, others have ruled out rational explanations entirely, claiming that this is divine punishment for the sins of mankind, or the Matrix finally collapsing in on itself. Others deny that the horrible events are even happening at all. An infamously contrarian livestream personality logs on from his insulated basement, crowing to his viewers that
None of this is actually happening. It's all a ploy to keep us complacent and under government control. Ask yourself, why don't they want us going outside? So we
Again.
don't see what they're really up to.
As commenters
In-
try
in
desperately
this-
to
in
change his
today's
mind, he doubles
environment,
down.
You're all
this
just a
is
bunch of
too
sheeple,
real.
bah.
He laughs.
Look, I'll show you there's nothing to worry about.
He carries his laptop upstairs with him and steps outside onto the sidewalk. In his computer screen, he can see the video feed of his own face beginning to droop and liquefy before he can even feel it. He tries to run back inside, away from the light, but it's too late. His legs are already giving out. The viewers can only watch as their favorite streamer dissolves in real time, until his now useless hands drop the laptop to the ground, where it breaks into pieces, and the stream goes dark. Hour 12. For those who have survived this long, at the 12-hour mark, things are beginning to get tense. Actually, that would be an understatement. Tensions have been bubbling steadily for the past 12 hours. as people have melted into unrecognizable waxy monsters,
melting people.
exploded in plane crashes, and been traumatized to within an inch of their lives. Now those tensions are boiling over. Human beings in a crisis can be a bit like crabs in a bucket, vicious and ready to tear each other to pieces if they perceive that they might be left behind. When there is a shortage of resources, this selfish fear and anger only gets worse. Hour 13. There might not be a lack of food or fresh water yet, but there is another resource that seems worth destroying each other for: darkness. In a world where light means death, the only safe place is in the dark. But there are a limited number of places that people
for these videos or something?
In rural areas, families retreat to storm cellars or the insides of empty grain silos. In cities, underground parking garages become hiding places.
Or am I missing it, Joe?
And there just isn't enough space there to go around. People erupt into physical fights in these parking complexes, punching and shoving each other, even attacking with broken bottles and other improvised weapons, all to stake their claim over this newfound territory. Even more contentious are warehouses, insulated hiding places filled with all the supplies that will soon start to dwindle: toilet paper, canned goods, soap, and bottled water. These things just might be worth killing for, and many are already prepared to do so. Hour 14. While the SCP Foundation is busy trying to maintain order and find a way to end this catastrophic event, other groups dedicated to the anomalous are equally busy. The Chaos Insurgency attempt to
sometimes you just wish that you could actually see some of those streamers get their comeuppance in the middle
However,
of the
their
stream,
defenses against the sun
then it actually
prove
might
ineffective, and they are melted before
fix a
they
few
can
people
so
out
much
there.
as reach the site's entrance. Inside, the Foundation staff never even notice. They have far too much on their hands already. Other groups take a less offensive approach, prioritizing safety. Members of the Serpent's Hand escape to the Interdimensional Wanderer's Library along with their families, settling in for the long haul and preparing to make it their permanent home as the Earth burns. They didn't want it to end this way, but they are not going to stick around to be a part of it all. Hour 18.
I've never
Not
heard
all
of that
people are
group.
turning on each other, even as things appear dire. The best thing anyone can do in a horrible situation is to look for those willing to extend a helping hand. There will always be people trying to look out for others, to put out the fires, and airlift people out of the floodwaters. Though this disaster seems anything but natural, the instinct to help is still there for many. Doctors and nurses hole up in hospitals, blocking out the windows with spare pairs of scrubs and whatever else they can find to light-proof the building. There they treat the wounded that make it inside, wrapping broken bones and stitching up wounds as best they can. A few well-intentioned souls even attempt to treat those changed by the sun, those things that barely look human anymore, no matter how hard they try to arrange their soft bodies back into their former shape. It is too late for them, though. There's nothing to be done, and no medical school in the world could have prepared a doctor to heal this hurt. But what about the people who aren't all the way gone? The ones who started to change but got inside in time to slow or even stop the process? Hospital staff treat the melting like an infection, amputating molten limbs or attempting to clean and bandage them, unsure of what to do with a piece of human body that no longer behaves like flesh and bone. They're able to save a few people, but far more are already doomed by the time they make it inside. They disintegrate slowly but steadily, fading away on the operating table until their warbling voices are urging the doctors to follow them outside. It doesn't hurt, they promise, reaching out with fleshy tentacles that were once hands. It's hard to remember the Hippocratic Oath when a monster is trying to pull you into its grasp. Hour 20. While some are trying to help the creatures created by the sun's wrath, others have been waiting for this moment since they saw their very first zombie movie.
The
To them, this is an outbreak, plain and simple, and it's the perfect chance to suit up and play soldier. They cloak themselves in body armor and helmets with dark-tinted visors, and grab whatever weapons they can find. Grenades, firearms, flamethrowers, anything is fair game at the end of the world. A former police officer and massive fan of zombie-themed first-person shooters takes to the streets, staring down an enormous mound of flesh made from dozens of people melding together, ropey tentacles flailing and grasping for more bodies to add to its mass. He fires an array of bullets into the thing, but they are absorbed into its surface, swallowed up inside. He searches for weak points, for eyes, a heart, anything he can target. but he can't spot anything vulnerable. But he's not deterred. He'll try fire next. He lights a homemade Molotov cocktail and hurls it at the beast, waiting for it to ignite and listening for the sound of its painful cries. But nothing comes. The cocktail explodes and nearby debris catches on fire, but the ball of flesh doesn't react. It just continues to advance towards him, making its way down the street as if it has all the time in the world. There's only one option left, and it's the riskiest one of all. He pulls out a grenade and pulls the pin. Throwing it won't do. He needs to run up and thrust the grenade into the body of the monster to blow it up from the inside. He's going to have to be quick. He summons all the stamina from his high school track and field days and makes a mad sprint for the creature, holding the grenade out in front of him. Eyes on the prize, there is nothing but the mission now, the chance to be a hero. He is so singularly focused on his task that he doesn't notice a tentacle snaking along the ground toward him until it loops around his feet, flipping him over until he's upside down. The force of the movement knocks his helmet loose, and it falls to the ground. He moves to shield his face with his hands, but it's useless. The sunlight has already found him. He is already changing, becoming one with the very thing he promised to destroy. He stares up at the mass with reverence, just before his eyes drop out of his head, and reaches his arms out to welcome the embrace. By the time the grenade detonates, he can't bring himself to care about it. He can't care about anything except being part of the flesh. Hour 22. If individuals have a tendency to blame each other in times of strife, then governments are even worse. Surviving leaders of various countries, shivering in their bunkers and tearing out their hair with stress, begin to convince themselves that this must be some kind of act of biological warfare gone wrong. Nuclear testing, some kind of deadly gas, something. Surely ruination on this grand of a scale must be man-made. With no other recourse, they begin declaring war on each other. Everyone pointing a finger at someone else as no one is able to take responsibility. The threats, the denials, and the rage escalate until finally, the North Korean government makes a decision that would seem completely insane under any other circumstances.
It's funny they make it
the sun. It's irrational.
Even better. I was going to say it's funny that it's
gasp of a species hurtling towards
but
extinction.
Nuke the sun.
One final attempt to bring it all to an end before it's
send a nuclear weapon into a nuclear ball of fire. That's really going to freaking
clears. It becomes completely apparent the old world is dead, and a new world, for better or for much, much worse, is born. Nothing will ever be the same again. Now go check out SCP-001 When Day Breaks Dr. Bright and When Day Breaks SCP-035 for more of everyone's favorite apocalypse. The SCP Foundation does their best to live up to their famous namesake.
The possessive
They secure and contain anomalies and monsters from all around the world, or sometimes even off-world, and protect the public from the dangers that these strange entities might pose. However, despite their efforts to maintain security and keep
I see
their
nothing
subjects
wrong with
under
this
lock
plan.
and key, there are
I mean,
sometimes creatures so
you might as well try
so
something.
devious, and so determined to escape their captivity and wreak havoc on the world, that even the SCP Foundation struggles to keep them from getting free. One example is SCP-035, or the Possessive Mask. SCP-035 is one of the most dangerous test subjects in SCP Foundation custody, and its mere presence at the Foundation has resulted in untold damage, death, and destruction. It seems innocent enough to the untrained eye. The mask, which resembles a classic white porcelain comedy mask, though it occasionally changes its expression to tragedy, has been in existence since at least the 1800s. In the late 19th century, the Foundation discovered the mask in a sealed crypt beneath an abandoned home in Venice. It is unknown how it got there, or how the Foundation knew to look for it. If there was ever an explanation for its discovery, it has long since been removed or redacted from the Foundation's archives. You're probably wondering, how can a simple mask leave multiple seasoned Foundation employees dead? Well, like everything at the SCP Foundation, this mask is not what it seems. There is a reason its classification is Keter, a designation that refers to an entity that's excessively difficult to contain, and it couples this difficulty with a pronounced hostility towards human life, and the ability to cause widespread destruction in the event of a containment breach. These are the qualities that the poor unfortunate souls assigned to guard SCP-035 would come to understand all too well. The possessive mask is a parasitic entity, constantly seeking out a host willing to put it on. Any human being in the mask's proximity experiences a sudden, unexplainable urge to put it on, and once they do, there's no going back. SCP Foundation research has determined that once a host has put on the mask, their brain waves are replaced with an alternative pattern, this one coming from the mask, rendering the host effectively brain dead. Once the host's brain function has been eliminated, the mask takes over, piloting their body and even speaking through them. However, the mask can only occupy a host for a small amount of time before the body begins to decay and decompose, eventually rotting away completely, leaving nothing but desiccated flesh and bones where there once was a person.
Well,
SCP-035 is capable of possessing any humanoid being, whether that's an actual human being or a lifeless humanoid shape. Despite all their research, the SCP Foundation unknowingly gave the mask all the tools and resources it needed to break containment and leave a trail of bodies in its wake. For a time, the mask was given host privileges, meaning that it was purposely allowed to occupy a host in order to speak with the scientists studying it. In order to avoid murky ethical issues, the host was usually something inanimate like a mannequin or a statue. These conditions, however unsettling, allowed the researchers to carry out interviews with the consciousness housed inside the mask, in the hope of beginning to understand it and its motivations. However, SCP-035 lost all access to its host privileges after it almost pulled off an unprecedented, shocking, and nearly catastrophic escape attempt. In its early days at the facility, when it was still allowed host privileges, it was contained in a triple-locked room and monitored by several research personnel. These were experienced researchers who had been with the Foundation for a minimum of 5 years each, an unusually long tenure in such a dangerous and mentally corrosive line of work. These research staff members were thought to be the most capable of handling interactions with the mask and be able to resist its attempts at manipulation. Unfortunately, these assumptions were naive and seriously underestimated the mask's power. Research on the mask indicates that the mask is incredibly intelligent and a skilled manipulator. It has a photographic memory, intelligence that would rank it in the 99th percentile of humans, and the ability to incite dramatic changes in the behavior and people that it talks to. One particularly infamous interview between the entity and an unnamed doctor at the Foundation suggested that the mask may even possess telepathic abilities. The mask was able to give details about the doctor's life that no one else was privy to, including knowledge of an affair that his wife was having. Following the interview, the doctor suffered a psychotic break and committed suicide just 24 hours later. The mask is able to use its superior intelligence, charismatic personality, and mind-reading abilities to get inside the heads of those it speaks with. It will pull out any and all psychological stops to get what it wants, leaving broken minds and spirits in its wake. It was really only a matter of time before it used this skill set to its advantage and attempted to escape its confinement. The day of the escape attempt was like any other. The research staff, a team of 3 intelligent, experienced men, checked into the facility, measured the conditions of the mask's containment unit, and began the process of interviewing the mask like normal. Its motions were slow and looked to require great effort, as its current host was beginning to degrade beyond use. The mask was attached to the blank face of a mannequin, and corrosive black liquid could be seen oozing from its eye and mouth holes. This liquid is excreted by the mask at a near constant rate, and it's thought to be at least partially responsible for the accelerated decay of the host bodies. In spite of the entity's unsettling, nightmarish appearance, it was just another day's work for the men assigned to monitor SCP-035, and so they carried on with their daily routine. Everything was going according to plan until one of the men, Dr. Jones, began to behave erratically. He demanded that his fellow scientists leave him alone with the mask for a while, and allow him to engage in a private conversation with it. It is unknown what exactly the two spoke about while the other 2 scientists were absent, as the security footage captured had no sound. However, several minutes into the conversation in the footage, Dr. Jones can be seen dissolving into a fit of tears, laying on the ground and shaking with sobs as the mask dispassionately watches. He then climbs onto his knees, begging the mask for something, before he embraces it. He holds the mannequin in his arms for 5 straight minutes, weeping again before they separate. After this disturbing emotional display, Dr. Jones brought the other scientists back into the room with him. What happened next is still uncertain, but there are a few things that we know for sure. The other scientists began to speak with the mask. In later interviews, the other scientists were bordering on incoherent babbling about various traumas from their lives. One repeatedly referred to a drunk driving accident where a dear friend was killed, and he was at fault. Another simply cried out for his mother again and again. Whatever the mask said to them, it was enough to completely destroy their mental health. After the two scientists had been emotionally devastated by the mask, Dr. Jones escalated the situation further. Dr. Jones removed the mask from the decaying mannequin body, and shocking everyone who had later reviewed the security footage, placed it onto his own face. Once the mask was in place, the security footage ends. At the command of the mask, which was now speaking through Dr. Jones, the other two men switched off all security camera monitoring SCP-035's containment facility. The mask, piloting the body of Dr. Jones like a horrible fleshy puppet, made its way through the facility, avoiding detection until it reached the exit doors, where it was finally stopped by a
no
team
one
of
sees
over
a
a
dude
dozen
just wearing the
security
mask
guards.
walking around.
Knowing the dangers of touching the mask, all Foundation employees involved in the recontainment of SCP-035 refused to remove it from Dr. Jones' face. Instead, he was placed in the lock room with the mask still on, left alone to be observed over the security cameras until his body had decomposed beyond use. His body paced back and forth in the cell for days, flesh rotting and dropping away only until sinew and bone remained. Only when the bones began to turn black and brittle, crumbling apart into dust, did the body finally stop moving. His family was notified, the mask was carefully removed from what was left of his body, and his remains were destroyed. The other two scientists involved in the SCP-035 escape attempt were terminated, and their files destroyed. After this incident, a few more failed escape attempts, and the acknowledgement of the devastation that could have been caused if the mask had made its way out into the general population.
Solid Snake, this guy.
SCP-035 lost its host privileges altogether. Several research staff protested this decision, insisting that there was more to be learned from speaking with the entity, and citing valuable information that it had given about other SCPs. However, the risk was determined to considerably outweigh the potential reward, and the request to reinstate 035's host privileges were denied. Several staff members went so far as to erupt into violent outbursts on 035's behalf, attacking their supervisors who refused to provide the mask with a new host, clawing at them with animalistic rage. Any staff members that submitted a request to reinstate said privileges were considered a security threat and reassigned to a different SCP, or in some cases, terminated. Any staff member who had direct contact with SCP-035 was also terminated, in order to avoid the risk of any more staff-aided escape attempts. The mask is now kept in a hermetically sealed glass case, and there is a psychologist on call to provide assistance to anyone guarding it, in case of adverse effects on their mental health from the mask's presence. Personnel that work around the mask, even in its current dormant state, experience frequent violent outbursts and a higher rate of suicide. Even without a host, the mask's corrosive effects have spread across its containment facility. The walls of the room have begun to secrete the same black liquid that emanates from the mask, which tests have revealed to be highly contaminated human blood that damages the structural integrity of the walls following prolonged contact. This blood has begun to form patterns on the walls, spelling out words and phrases in Italian, Latin, Greek, and Sanskrit, as well as depicting drawings of ritual sacrifice and mutilation. Staff members also report hearing unintelligible whispering and horrifying high-pitched laughter when in proximity to the mask. Further exposure to the mask results in migraines, hemorrhaging around the eyes, mouth, and nose, and an eventual psychotic break. Between the corrosive substance appearing on the walls and the physical and psychological damage to employees, SCP-035 is becoming increasingly difficult to contain, and there are debates among
Sounds
staff
like something
as to
they just
whether
need
the
to
entity
bury
can, in fact,
as deep as it can
contain
go
it
and
all.
just leave it.
As soon as possible, SCP-035 will be moved into a new containment facility, and its previous cell will be isolated from the rest of the Foundation's property and destroyed for the safety of all involved. We can only hope that the new containment procedures are more effective than the last ones, and that this mask never makes its way into the world again. If it does, who knows how many lives it will claim. In the meantime, if you ever come across a strange mask and feel a nearly uncontrollable urge to put it on, ignore the whispered pleas to just try it. Ignore the echoing laughter and the sensation of something older and more powerful than you can imagine rummaging through your deepest, darkest secret thoughts. Turn around and run as fast as you can in the other direction. You'll be glad that you did.
It just needs to find its way into a Spirit of Halloween store. It'll get everybody at once.
A tangled mass of yarn and ribbon sounds more like what you'd find in the back room of a craft store or a forgotten closet than a mysterious creature worthy of investigation. And yet that's exactly what SCP-066 appeared to be, or at least it did at first glance. But the SCP Foundation doesn't contain and study just anything, and there was, and still is, something incredibly strange just below the surface of SCP-066, also known as Eric's Toy. At first, Eric's Toy seemed to be completely harmless and even helpful, a knot of string that produced strange but harmless items and effects. But the Foundation soon discovered a dark side to SCP-066. While it may be referred to as a toy, this is no mere plaything. SCP-066 weighs only about 1 kilogram and appears to be a braided bunch of yarn and ribbon. Though there is no apparent musical capability within the strands of yarn and ribbon themselves, music can be produced by moving individual strands one at a time. When it was first being studied, this SCP was composed of multicolored strings and ribbons, but it has since undergone a transformation and now presents an appearance somewhat different from its initial description. The strands of yarn and ribbon can be used to play the notes of a diatonic scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, though the research has not been able to determine just how SCP-066 produces music, or any sound at all. SCP-066 was thought to be completely benign at first and was classified as safe, but following an incident known as Incident 066-2, its classification was adjusted to a subcategory of Euclid impetus. Euclid is a classification given to SCPs that are more difficult to contain than those classified as safe. Impetus in Latin means attack, and specifies that SCP-066 is not only Euclid class, but on the more aggressive side. While 066 is not always aggressive towards humans, the events of Incident 066-2 prove that it is highly unpredictable and should not be provoked. Like many SCPs, it proved that underestimating its capabilities can be a dangerous mistake.
Do not piss off
Before the
Leon.
incident, SCP-066 displayed only charming, if unusual, behavior. Various researchers spent their time playing random assortment of notes using its strings, curious about what would happen, and determined to record anything this unusual ball of string had to offer. They did not yet know that the creature was capable of any hostility, and went about their work with a lighthearted, carefree spirit. After playing an improvised 6-note melody with the strands, a researcher was thrilled to find that SCP-066 was capable of shapeshifting. Its appearance changed to resemble a small calico kitten for 17 minutes. The kitten was incredibly friendly, rubbing its head against the researcher's gloved hand and purring loudly. Ironically enough, the kitten also spent time playing with a piece of string. After the 17 minutes were up, the kitten transformed back into SCP-066's original form. A few days later, another researcher played a different melody on the strands and was surprised to find that, when they stopped, the music continued on its own. The sound of an acoustic guitar kicked in, accompanied by vocals with no visible source for either sound. The SCP then played a 4-minute song with lyrics warning against the use of sharp objects without the supervision of a parent, especially scissors. After the song ended, the SCP was silent for the rest of the day. The following week, a research assistant used the strands of SCP-066 to play the opening notes of Happy Birthday, and a chocolate cupcake with a lit birthday candle appeared from within the braided strings. Against the warning of his peers, the assistant ate the cupcake. In response, the SCP played the rest of Happy Birthday, and the assistant suffered no adverse effects from the cupcake.
Hey.
All of this fun was brought to a swift end when one scientist suggested that a portion of SCP-066's yarn body be cut off and removed so that the specimen could be tested. On April 18, 2008, the event that would become known as Incident 066-2 took place. A young man known only as D-066-4437, or D, was assigned to the task. Naturally, he was a member of the highly disposable D-class personnel. But D was grateful for the opportunity, as most experiments of a similar nature involved quite a bit more obvious risk. It was a simple enough job. Take a pair of scissors, snip off some yarn, and bring it back to the lab for further study. It was hardly on the level of supervising 173, or being 682's latest chew toy. He entered the containment room, where SCP-066 was lying dormant and still, and approached it with scissors. He grabbed a small handful of string and started to cut. As soon as the scissors began to cut through the fabric, the SCP rolled out of his grasp. It came to a stop 1 meter away, where it started to make a high-pitched squeaking sound resembling the cry of a frightened rabbit. Unsure what to do and unprepared for this scenario, D approached the entity again. He snagged another fistful of yarn and cut, only for 066 to curl into a ball and roll away from him again, even faster this time. Once it was safely on the other side of the room and away from the scissors, it stopped moving. Only this time, it didn't squeak. Instead, for the very first time since its containment, it spoke in a deep, uncannily human voice and asked, "Are you Eric?" After recovering from his initial shock at hearing a voice come out of a massive string, D responded, "No, I'm not." This answer set something off in SCP-066, and its form began to shift and change. The string wriggled around on the floor, unbraiding and wrapping around itself into a mound. The colors, previously a rainbow of shades, shifted until every strand was a blood red. Much to D's horror, the transformation was not yet complete. Small bumps began to emerge from the spaces between the strands of yarn, popping out all over the bright red mass. If that wasn't terrifying enough, suddenly all together as one, they blinked open, revealing themselves to be over a dozen small eyes. Every single eye was focused at D, studying him, staring him down. SCP-066 then began to produce loud, abrupt, dissonant notes like someone banging on the keys of a piano. D had seen enough. He abandoned his task and fled the containment room. After this failed attempt to extract a sample, SCP-066's behavior and its treatment of personnel who interacted with it began to change dramatically.
Oh yeah, you
Before
try
the
to cut
incident,
part
the
of it off.
SCP was largely dormant, only becoming active if a melody was played using its strands. Following the incident and its change of form, 066 began to move on its own. Long strands of its yarn body would move like tentacles, writhing and wriggling around at high speed. It no longer needed human interaction in order to produce sound or to produce any other effects. At the sight of any human, regardless of the human's behavior, the SCP would begin to react with sound and effect within 6 seconds. The first of these effects was noted by a research assistant who entered the SCP's containment facility a week after the incident with D. As she approached 066 to take notes about its current state and its new ability to move, a bee appeared out of nowhere. It stung the assistant and flew away before it could be captured. Weeks later, a team of 11 personnel were monitoring the SCP when it suddenly burst into a rendition of Beethoven's Second Symphony. It produced this music at a volume of over 140 decibels, permanently deafening 3 of the personnel and causing permanent hearing damage in the other 8. It was theorized that the SCP did this as an act of retribution for its perceived mistreatment. These personnel refused to work with SCP-066 again. When a new team was assigned to monitor the entity, everything seemed to be going well at first. It was moving around, flailing its tentacles of yarn at nothing in particular, and staring at the personnel with its many eyes, but otherwise was on its best behavior. Then, suddenly, every light in the room went dark, and there was a complete loss of visibility. The lights were unable to be turned on for 5 hours, and any attempt at an alternate light source, such as a flashlight, was unsuccessful. It was as if the darkness in the room swallowed any and all light right up. It was similar to the oppressive darkness within SCP-087, or the unlimited black of SCP-3001's Shadow Dimension. The personnel in the room later reported hearing the sound of loud, labored breathing just behind their shoulders, though when they searched for a source of the sound, they could find nothing. There had been no recent anomalies reported, or any additional hostile behavior. Instead, whenever it sees a new human, SCP-066 repeats the name Eric again and again in the same deep voice. Who is Eric? No one at the facility knows, or if they do, they have not reported it to any official channels.
Why don't they
It is
get a guy
possible that
named
the
Eric?
SCP was once owned by someone named Eric, and perhaps, given the circumstances under which SCP-066 first said the name, Eric attempted to cut the threads of the entity while it was in his care. Unfortunately, there are no official records of how SCP-066 was discovered, or why it was brought to the
Bring a dude
Foundation in
named
the
Eric
first
in and
place.
see what it does.
Its origins remain murky and as mysterious as everything else about it. All that is known is that, whoever Eric is, SCP-066 is determined to find him. Once the SCP's class was changed from Safe to Euclid, its containment procedures had to be adjusted. While it was previously kept in a simple room, it is now contained in a tungsten carbide box at its site's high-value item storage facility. Once a month, the box is inspected for damage to its interior, due to the SCP's tendency to use its appendages to wear down the walls of the box over time. If there is any damage, SCP-066 is to be moved to a new box using a robotic arm that performs this transfer in less than 3 seconds.
Yeah, screw you, Eric.
The Foundation has attempted to place recording devices
We
in
had
the
a
box
fun
with
little
the
ball of
entity
yarn
in
that
order
played
to monitor
music
its
and gave us
behavior when
cake.
there are no humans present.
And now
The
it turned
SCP
into
destroys
like an
every
evil
recording
version of
device
Meatwad.
placed inside of its containment box.
Damn
And
it.
any attempts to record its behavior when it is not being observed by humans have been unsuccessful. Whatever it's doing when there is no one around, it wants to keep a secret. On the surface, SCP-066 is one of the less frightening finds contained within the walls of the SCP Foundation. It does not have claws or teeth or the ability to cause mass deaths, but it has incredible, unpredictable capabilities and seems very capable of holding a grudge. There is so much that is unknown about it, from its origins to its form to its ability to manifest matter from nothing. And there is something deeply unsettling about this SCP's unpredictable behavior and increased hostility towards being observed. We do not know what it has done, and we do not know what it will do next. All we can do is wonder. As we ponder the nature of SCP-066, it does nothing but sit, staring with unblinking eyes, waiting for Eric to come back. The young girl stood silently in a room full of corpses, staring off into the distance. She was in a trance, seemingly unaware of the carnage that had just unfolded around her. Some of the men were shot or stabbed or beaten. Others had no apparent cause of death whatsoever, but the young girl was unscathed. She was wearing a yellow summer dress and looked like she couldn't have been more than 3 years old. She awoke from her trance, still paying no heed to the violence in the room, and left. This is the story of SCP-053.
Just sounds like a 3-year-old.
Her strange and terrifying
We've all
life
been there.
before containment, her thrilling capture, and the part she played in one of the most dangerous SCP Foundation cross-tests of all time. She had no name. The young girl could never spend enough time around someone to be given one. It was her terrible curse that she could never stay in one place for too long, or something truly awful would happen to everyone around her. She'd been drifting for years, but never grew to look older than a child. Her memories were long but formless, divided mostly into 10-minute increments. The young girl kept on moving. It was all she could do. In 1993, when the young girl had already been alive for a very long time, she found herself in Illinois after days of trekking on the roadside. She would scavenge what little food she needed from the trash and drink from lakes, rivers, or even puddles when she needed to. Deep down, the young girl knew that if she ever grew hungry or thirsty, she would not die. In her travels, the young girl had managed to scrounge together a few dollars, and though she knew her contact with people had to be limited, there was one thing she wanted that felt worth the risk: a candy bar. It'd been a long time since she tasted chocolate, and she found the idea of tasting it again too enticing to resist. When she reached Chicago, she entered a small corner store with her handful of dollars, selected a candy bar from the rack, and approached the counter. For reasons even she didn't fully understand, she kept her eyes down as she placed the money on the counter. You see, SCP-053 was always a special child. As we briefly mentioned earlier, you might even say she was cursed. Whenever she was around other people for too long, terrible things tended to happen. Unspeakable things. And as a component of this strange, unexplainable curse, or perhaps as a means of keeping her safe from it, the young girl was doomed to never understand the nature of her predicament. It was like there was a mental wall between her and the horrors her presence could cause. All she knew was that it was best to avoid eye contact, stay away from large groups of people at all costs, and never spend any longer than 10 minutes around anyone, ever. That's why, as she waited for her chocolate bar at the cash register, she kept her head down
while in Chicago.
The cashier looked upon this strange girl with apparent concern. It had been a slow day, all in all. A few listless patrons milled around the store, window shopping. His brain was practically on autopilot until he saw this child. She looked filthy, in a disheveled dress, and was totally alone. What on earth had happened to this child? The more he looked at her, the more he sensed a creepy vibe exuding from her. Something about this girl was wrong. He spoke softly to her, introducing himself as Miles, and asking her where her mommy and daddy were. The young girl hesitated for just a few seconds too long for his liking, before simply saying that they were at home. Any parent who'd let their 3-year-old kid just wander around the south side of Chicago alone was either crazy, neglectful, or both. He asked her politely to remain in the store while he gave the police a
Well, how do you expect them to toughen up?
He'd even let her have the candy bar for free while she waited. Immediately, the little girl became uncomfortable. She had already been in here for a few minutes now, and while Miles called the police, he expected her to wait around even longer. Again, she couldn't even tell you why she knew waiting around like this would be so dangerous, but she had a nagging, instinctual awareness that she needed to get out. Around the store, the few patrons still inside started to get a strange feeling, like someone was watching them. Soon, what seemed like mild paranoia was quickly becoming white-hot anger. Pure rage. They felt almost like they had to kill someone, but not just anyone. Someone particular. They had to kill the little girl. It wasn't long until the police arrived. 2 officers, Holiday and DeWitt, entered to collect the apparently neglected little girl. It was a story they'd sadly heard all too often, a tragically common occurrence in the big city. When the 2 of them approached the young girl, she was looking down at the ground. They tried to speak to her, but she was unresponsive. Miles looked on, concerned, but deep down, he felt the same bizarre progression all the other storegoers were feeling. Confusion, irritability, and finally, violent rage. The corner store was a powder keg. All it needed now was a spark. And that spark came when Officer Holiday reached down and took the young girl by the arm. His bare skin touched hers, and it was all over. The cop twitched. His mind washed out in murderous insanity as he reached for his sidearm. Officer DeWitt opened his mouth to protest, but he didn't manage to get a syllable out before Holiday turned and shot him. In a fraction of a second, the quiet corner store exploded into a violent bloodbath as the patrons and cops slaughtered each other. All the while, the young girl just stood there in a trance. Everyone was dead within minutes, except Miles and the young girl. He shakily rose to his feet, his mind carved out by madness, and reached for Officer Holiday's discarded pistol. Outside of the store, the young girl appeared, walking out as if nothing had happened. Inside, Miles's body was sprawled over the counter, clutching his chest as if his heart had just exploded. This was the true nature of the young girl's curse. Anyone who meets her eye, touches her skin, or spends over 10 minutes around her is destined to slip into a state of murderous insanity. They'll go into a kill-crazy frenzy and attack anyone around them until all that is left is them and the young girl. At which point they'll try to kill her too, but the mere act of attempting to kill her is also fatal, killing its victims with a massive heart attack or a seizure. The second part of the girl's curse is that she herself can never die. She keeps coming back, unknowingly causing more misery and death along the way. Until, of course, a certain secret organization took notice. That night, the young girl sat in the cavernous interior of a local abandoned warehouse, quietly eating her hard-earned candy bar. Suddenly, she heard a quiet crack in the distance. She tried to move her left arm, but found it was numb. She could barely move it. The girl turned her head and saw a tranquilizer dart sticking out of her skin. Instinctively, she got up and began to run, limping as her left leg started to lose all feeling too. Suddenly, she was surrounded by footsteps as masked men in SWAT uniforms emerged out of the darkness on all sides. The last thing she remembered before slipping out of consciousness was a blindfold being pulled over her eyes and tiny metal handcuffs clasping over her wrists. When she woke up, she was in the nicest room she had slept in years. It was 16 feet by 16 feet, with toys, books, and games. Standing across the room from her was a stranger in a full hazmat suit, connected to a long steel cable leading out of the room. He spoke calmly and politely. A timer on his wrist counted down from 10 minutes. The stranger explained to the young girl that they would be taking care of her now and would provide her with all the toys and games and treats she wanted, provided she cooperated and submitted willingly to some tests. Compared to living out on the streets with no food or comfort, this seemed like an excellent compromise. She would live in what seemed like luxury, and every so often, she'd be taken to a testing room with a stranger in an orange jumpsuit. After a few minutes of waiting, the stranger would inevitably go feral and attempt to kill her, and then always die in the process. The strangers in the hazmat suits told her that all of these tests were helping them learn extremely valuable things about her, and that soon they'd have a very special job for her. It would be a wonderful surprise. It was the spring of 1994 that the young girl, now officially designated SCP-053, finally received her special mission. Several strangers in full hazmat suits wielding rifles escorted her out of her usual bedroom. She asked where she was being taken and was told she was going to meet a new friend. She was taken to one of the recreational testing rooms and pushed inside. Out in front of her,
they're going to
she
try to
saw
use her to kill the
something
reptile.
terrifying. A giant reptilian creature. She retreated from it instinctually, hiding behind a chair in the containment area. The giant reptile didn't move. It just sat there. Eventually, she plucked up the courage to go and touch the creature before retreating again. No reaction. Little by little, the young girl gained confidence and continued to approach and pat the creature. It exhaled through its huge nostrils, and the young girl literally jumped for joy in her amusement. She began to play with the docile monster, hugging it, even drawing on it with a crayon. The observers were truly baffled. What the young girl didn't know was that she was playing with SCP-682, one of the most hateful and aggressive anomalies under the Foundation's watchful eye. And yet, in her presence, the creature was like an overgrown puppy dog. After the test phase, the young girl was removed from the hard-to-kill reptile's presence, immediately causing the creature to become violent and murderous once again. After being separated from her strange new friend, the young girl was seen crying for several minutes. According to all accounts,
around her
the young girl was eager to see her friend again someday.
Kind of works in his
Though considering the reptile
So,
killed several guards after their separation, the Foundation isn't eager to grant her that wish. SCP-053 was classified as Euclid and continues to be held in containment, with her toys, books, and games rotated out on a regular basis. Seeing as she shows no sign of aging, this ongoing containment is likely to be the sad, strange fate of the young girl, an anomaly that never wanted to hurt anyone, but an important and cruel reminder that what we want doesn't always influence the world in the way we want. Check out SCP-096, The Shy Guy, and SCP-5000, The Suit, for more tales from the SCP Foundation's deepest, darkest archives.
That is sad for her. Be a kid like that. Okay. Well, I went from being highly disturbed to now semi-depressed, so I think that's a good time to quit. Leon, if you're still here, thank you. Thank you for the raid. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for letting me get angry during Death Battle. If anybody else is here, if you enjoyed any of it, go ahead and hit the follow button. It does help out. I'm going to see if anybody out there is worth raiding. You never know. I don't think there's going to be any followers, but I can find maybe something. Who's another small streamer doing just chatting? Scroll. Let me turn some music on for you. Thank you, Leon. I'll try to. Probably still gonna stay up for a little while longer. Go actually watch something. If anybody else in the house is up. You know what? Somebody here is working on cosplay. They sound excited. So I'm going to send any of y'all to Sadly Suspicious. And hopefully, Leon, you have a good night. And if anybody else is here, you all have a good night as well. All right. Thank you all for being here and everything. Good night, everybody.